Ladies and gents, boys and girls, welcome. Thursday, September the 21st, 2023. Hope you're all doing well. Chris Phillips here, your host of the Daily Crow of the Spurs Up Show. Appreciate you all tuning in. We have got a jam-packed show for you all here on this Thursday. I see Xavier, Brendan, Travi, Mantis, Ethan, K, Jacob. What's going on? Also, those in the Big Cock Club Discord, head over to the TDC Questions channel, the TDC Questions channel, to be sure your questions are answered there. Again, guys, really excited to chat with each and every single one of you. Looking forward to all of our discussion. Again, want to say thank you to JC and Phil over at Inside the Gamecocks. We just got off of the airwaves with them. We're talking all things looking back at the Georgia game, of course, this Saturday against Mississippi State, and everything in between. Guys, jam-packed show, as I mentioned, hour number 3. We have our Q&A Power Hour, taking your questions, comments, calls at 843-790-3377. Also, to kick off that third hour, I do have a major announcement about the future of TDC and how we will operate moving forward. In our second hour, we have my good friend Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate. He will join us to talk all things Gamecocks, SEC, everything in between ahead of a packed weekend of college football. And of course, guys, in this first hour, really exciting stuff as we'll do our drive around the SEC, talk top storylines and key matchups for this upcoming weekend against the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Also, guys, do not forget, check out tsus.store. We're actually dropping new merchandise as we speak, guys. I know I've gotten many requests for bigger sizes, 3X, 4X, 5X, if you will. We are actually getting the store updated to carry those sizes in all of your favorite collections. So make sure you check out tsus.store. And if there's any folks out there who have not been able to get 3X or 4X or 5X or what have you, please contact me directly if there's any specific designs that you want. Also, I've gotten requests for toddler-size T-shirts. We're going to add those as well. I know many of you out there want to get your kids some merchandise, a gift, what have you. Christmas is coming up, right, in just a couple of months. So we'll get those toddler sizes added also. Really excited, guys. Of course, tsus.store where you can find it. And let me also remind you, the A1 Air Quality Consultants post-game call-in show will take place after the game on Saturday night. Looking forward to it, guys. Of course, taking all of your calls after South Carolina's SEC home opener at Williams-Brice Stadium. Really excited for that, guys. Looking forward to it. Always a fun, always a blast, always a lot of fun. Again, guys, I cannot say thank you enough for the love and support because it has been a massive success to this point. Again, I see John Edward, Mark Powell, C. Youngblood, Hunter Johnson. Thank y'all so much for taking the time to tune in and catch the show and chat and conversating. Guys, looking forward to hearing from you all in this third hour. With that being said, we'll go ahead and kick things off, guys. Our drive around the SEC week 4, a jam-packed slate of SEC football and really college football as well, guys. I mean, games that we will not talk about that I'm excited to watch. The top two that come to mind, of course, the nooner, Florida State at Clemson. Seminoles are a slight favorite. Can't wait to see how that one plays out. And then how about Notre Dame and Ohio State, a game that undoubtedly is going to have major impact on the college football playoff, the landscape, if you will. Cannot wait to catch each of those two ball games. With that being said, guys, like I mentioned, our drive around the SEC week 4 begins in College Station, Texas, as Texas A&M hosts the Auburn Tigers, a noon kick on ESPN. And what a matchup we have, guys. Hugh Freeze, in his first SEC game back in the SEC, takes on Jimbo Fisher and Bobby Petrino, guys. Connor Wegman at the quarterback position. This is a massive game for Jimbo Fisher's future in College Station. Again, when you factor in the loss to Miami already, most were expecting a 9 or 10 win season this year for the Aggies. And I think it's safe to say this is a must win. This is one they have to have. I know we throw around must win too much. I've already said, let's not use that phrase as much as we do, right? But Texas A&M's got to have this one, right? You cannot afford a second loss. You cannot afford to lose your SEC opener. If you're Jimbo Fisher and Bobby Petrino, you cannot afford to fall to Hugh Freeze in his first SEC game back in the SEC. I'm also excited, guys, to learn more about Auburn. Like, what are they really? Because you have the nice road win over Cal, but it was a game in which you won that game 14-10, I believe. What is this Auburn offense, right? With Peyton Thorne, Robbie Ashford at the backup quarterback position, and then, Texas A&M. Can they play solid defense against a competent opponent, right? We trust the offense with Connor Wegman and Evan Stewart and Anaya Smith and, what Bobby Petrino is going to dial up. But I'm excited to see what tricks does Hugh Freeze have up his sleeve, because you can always count on Hugh Freeze, doing something or dialing something up, or his team's playing well in games like this. We've all heard about how good Hugh Freeze is in year ones at each of his individual stops, but this is an absolute must-have. The spread is only 7.5 in this football game. Texas A&M the favorite, so Vegas is expecting a close contest. I think that's a lot of respect to Hugh Freeze and what he means as an SEC football coach, what he means to Auburn, but also I think, guys, there's still uncertainty with Texas A&M. I mean, think about it, man. They don't have a win over a Power 5 opponent to this point. So going to learn a lot about both of these teams, and Texas A&M desperately needing to protect the home field. And, I think it's a break for Auburn, honestly, to get this game at noon. Cannot wait to see how this one shakes out. Kentucky goes on the road to take on the Vanderbilt Commodores in Nashville. Speaking of SEC teams desperately needing a win, Kentucky, guys, you might recall, lost to Vandy last year in Lexington. The Cats, this is one, guys, first SEC game, first game against, I would call, a competent opponent. I think Kentucky has really skated through the first 3 weeks of the season, taking on the likes of Akron and Western Kentucky and others, if you will. But I think this is a big one, obviously, for Kentucky and Vandy, man. We are all pronouncing them as dead at this point, but Clark Lee, his program, the way he has built this thing, what type of performance do we get from Vandy on Saturday afternoon? You can't expect much from the home crowd, obviously, in Nashville. I think Kentucky fans will probably take that over, but Devin Leary, Ray Davis carrying that over, Liam Cohen carrying that over into this game against Vandy. I think it's one most of us are expecting the Cats to roll. Cats are a 2-touchdown favorite in this football game, but definitely the revenge factor, I think, playing a factor here, guys, as Kentucky looks to make amends for what happened last year in Lexington. The 3:30 kickoff we go, guys, and probably the game of the weekend in the SEC. The Alabama Crimson Tide hosting the Ole Miss Rebels. 3:30 kickoff on CBS. And I'll say this, guys, from the Ole Miss perspective, and I mean, the SEC is just wild this year, right? The SEC is completely wacky when you think about it, and I thought J.C. Sherbert put it well. You can really take 2 through 13, shake them up, draw a name out of a hat, and you could convince me of those teams landing anywhere. I mean, it's truly the parity in the SEC. We've never seen it, I think, like this before. And I love what Jackson Dart and Quinshon Judkins and these other guys, what they've done to this point. But it's one thing to beat the likes of Tulane and Georgia Tech. And I know that Alabama they are a bit of a mess right now, right? They've had major problems. I think going back to Jalen Milroe, how he responds is a big-time storyline in this football game. And I think it was the right move to go back to Jalen Milroe after what we saw from Ty Simpson and Tyler Buckner. And for Ole Miss, going into Tuscaloosa, you look at this game on paper. If this game was in Oxford, I might have a different view of this game. And, of course, guys, I'll lock in my predictions tomorrow when we do our SEC Pick'em as we do each and every single week. But going into Tuscaloosa and effectively ending the quote-unquote dynasty, if you will, because I think that's what's on the line on Saturday. I think if Alabama, I think most of us right now are on the fence like, okay, Texas is a really good football team. Alabama didn't respond the way you'd like to see them respond. I don't think anybody's ready to go on record right now and say that, Nick Saban's done. He needs to retire. He needs to get out of there. Bama's going 7-5 or 6-6 or what have you. They lose to Ole Miss, those guys, on Saturday. I think all of a sudden, man, Bama falls to 2-2. I mean, can you even imagine the talk this time next week about Nick Saban's future in Tuscaloosa and what it means for his legacy and like all this conversation. But again, it's one thing to beat Tulane and Georgia Tech. It's another to go into Tuscaloosa and take down the beast. Texas was able to do it. Texas is also a college football playoff contending team. But if Ole Miss can do it, if Ole Miss, and this spread's obviously only 7 points, started at 11, came all the way down to 7. If Ole Miss is able to do it, man, you talk about the SEC West being absolutely wide open. I think that's putting it lightly. So, what can Alabama get out of Jalen Milroe? What will they get? More importantly, with a line of scrimmage for Bama step up on both sides, it is going to be a fascinating matchup and so much fun to watch on Saturday afternoon. We move to Knoxville, Tennessee, taking on UTSA, 4 o'clock kickoff on SEC Network. And guys, I think this was a game that probably had more juice in the offseason. This was one of those games that you looked at and you said, oh, that's a trap game. This is a trap game. But when you lose the week prior, I don't know that it as much applies as it once did, right? I think for Tennessee, backs against the wall, they absolutely cannot afford a loss. And also, guys, it sounds as if Tennessee's starting quarterback, or excuse me, not Tennessee, UTSA starting quarterback, his status is in question. And I think that's putting it lightly because Tennessee, guys, on Sunday, right, opened up as a 13-point favorite in this football game. That spread jumped all the way up to 21 points. And, guys, you don't typically get that type of line movement unless there is a major reason. And the reason we have found out is that redshirt senior quarterback Frank Harris did not play in their game Saturday against Army due to turf toe. And by the way, UTSA, they lost to Army in that football game. Apparently, it was initially reported he'd be a game-time decision against Army before he was held out. But it sounds as if Frank Harris, there's a good chance he will not be available in this football game. It'll be either he or Eddie Lee Marburger, which, what a name, by the way, Eddie Lee Marburger. So Tennessee might be catching somewhat of a break in this football game. They are now, like I mentioned, a 3-touchdown favorite. But for Tennessee, it's about responding to that Florida loss. You got to pick up the pieces. You can't let Florida beat you twice. What's the energy? What's the mood like in Neyland? And guys, if Joe Milton struggles in this football game, could we hear the Tennessee faithful calling for Nico? Do not be surprised, man, because UTSA is still a good football team, but I think Tennessee, I'm more so excited and more so intrigued to see how do they respond from a really, really tough defeat to the hands of the Florida Gators. We move, guys, the Battle of the Golden Boot, and it's weird to see this game being played this early. LSU and Arkansas doing battle 7 o'clock on ESPN in Death Valley in Baton Rouge. LSU is a 17.5-point favorite in this football game. Again, Arkansas, another team looking to respond, lost to BYU. Is Arkansas as bad as we saw against BYU, and is LSU as good as we saw against Mississippi State? I've already locked in my play, guys. I like Arkansas plus 17.5. Guys, these rivalry games always tend to get a bit funky, right? They always tend to get a bit weird. I think the status of Rocket Sanders matters in this football game. I think getting him back is very important. I love this quarterback matchup of KJ Jefferson against Jaden Daniels for LSU. You love LSU on the home field at night. Obviously, guys, Death Valley will be rocking. Cannot wait to watch. I mean, this is a fun SEC West rivalry. You got to find a way to slow down Malik Neighbors, slow down that LSU passing attack. The Tigers, are they coming into form? Or do they have more deficiencies and more problems than we once thought? I think I'm really excited to see, but Arkansas, again, do they get Rocket Sanders back? They absolutely have to have them. And I think you could see this be a high-scoring contest on Saturday night down on the Bayou. Florida taking on Charlotte, SEC Network Plus, ESPN Plus at 7 o'clock. Gators obviously coming off that big win. And they are now ranked in the top 25. A couple of Florida's top players sitting out due to suspension due to the post-game antics, if you will, from the Tennessee win, which conveniently, of course, the Gators players missing the game against Charlotte. Either way, this should be a chance for Florida to build off that win over Tennessee. Graham Mertz continue to build. Obviously, Trevor Etienne, what they do with him and Montrell Johnson in the running game. And, obviously Austin Armstrong's defense attacking here. I don't think Charlotte, guys, poses much of a threat. Of course, the Gamecocks saw them last year. I don't see CLT giving Florida much resistance. It should be a chance for the Gators to continue their positive momentum and add another one in the win column. Guys, we move to Athens, Georgia, where the Georgia Bulldogs actually got a night game, believe it or not. And that's something. And in case you don't understand what I'm referring to, go back and look at the history, guys. Georgia just never seems to get night games for whatever reason. But Georgia gets one here. The number one Dogs taking on UAB, a 7:30 kickoff on ESPN2. This game is obviously all about Georgia, right? Dogs, I think, are like a 42-point favorite in this game. But do we see Georgia finally start to take the training wheels off of Carson Beck? And was that second half against South Carolina sort of that wake up, if you will, to spark Georgia playing like Georgia, like what we expected Georgia to be all season long? Now, this is a banged up football team. They've got a laundry list of injury guys when it comes to the Georgia Bulldogs. A lot of guys are out, a lot of their top players. And of course, this is a game for Georgia that you want to protect those guys as you have Auburn looming on the schedule next weekend. But, I just want to see, is Georgia able to get off to a quicker start, guys? 3 straight games. They have come out of the gates really slow, really sluggish. Obviously, we saw against the Gamecocks, guys, down 14-3 at halftime. I think it's got to be a priority for UGA in that first quarter to come out swinging, get the running game going, get Carson Beck. I think taking some shots down the field. I mean, it's almost like Georgia, they've got this kid, Carson Beck, with a big arm. They got these great wide receivers, and it's almost like they're just not using them. Like they're choosing not to stretch the football field. And we saw that more from Georgia in the second half. Obviously, I think getting the running game going always going to be a priority at UGA, but I would not be surprised if they allowed Carson Beck to take more chances, take more deep shots, and just get this thing off to a quicker start, because it gets very real next week when UGA has to go on the plains to take on Auburn on the road, and you want to make sure you're operating at peak capacity. You're hitting on all cylinders, if you will. This is yet another tune-up game to do that. And guys, like we mentioned, Georgia's schedule just set up so well for them to get this thing rolling and get everybody feeling good and figure out who your dudes are. And, you got kind of a slight test against South Carolina, but, it's not like you were playing Alabama or LSU or anything like that early in the season. So, but I would expect Georgia to put it into another gear this weekend and really prepare themselves for the gauntlet that is SEC play. And finally, guys, of course, we're skipping over South Carolina, Mississippi State, because we are breaking that game down all week. Missouri taking on Memphis. 7:30 kickoff on ESPNU. And this is a game, guys, that I think what this one is like, okay, Mizzou, all right, Eli Drinkwitz, you impressed us. You beat Kansas State. You did something I didn't think you were going to do. What are you really? Because this is a game, guys. If Mizzou takes down Memphis, and they're only, a 6 or 7 point favorite in this game, right? Memphis coming in looking to play spoiler. If Missouri is able to do the job, you got Vandy next weekend. Then you got LSU coming to Como. Guys, that could be college game day. I mean, that could be one of the biggest games in the SEC that we witnessed, right? And I don't think any of us were expecting that. But this game right here against Memphis, it presents a major challenge. I think it's a major pitfall. It's another obstacle, another hurdle for Mizzou to overcome. And it's funny, guys, even after the Kansas State win, there are fans in Como who still are not sold on Eli Drinkwitz. If he wants to continue to win the fan base, and listen, you're an SEC team at home at night. This is a game you cannot lose. Now, what is the status of Brady Cook? That is a major, major storyline. Going in this football game, they may have to turn the reins over to Joe Horn. I think that plays a major role in who wins this football game, guys. How close is Brady Cook to 100%? Does he go in this football game? going to play a major role as Missouri does their best to stay undefeated and move to 4-0 on this season. Guys, that being said, let's go ahead and jump into our first break of the day. On the other side, we'll keep the conversation rolling here on this Thursday. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose while in the office or just in your home, call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, they are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya.
Muscle Dougie, ho.
All right, guys, we're back here on this Thursday, September the 21st, 2023. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Do not forget at 1:15, we've got my good friend Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate joining the show to talk all things Gamecocks, SEC, everything in between. Also, guys, in our third hour, our Q&A Power Hour, taking your questions, your comments, your calls, and to kick off that hour, I got a big announcement about the future of TDC and how we're going to move and operate moving forward beginning next week. But in the meantime, guys, to call Saturday night a big one is an understatement as the Gamecocks take on Mississippi State in the SEC home opener. Carolina sitting at 1-2, looking to get back to 500. My top storylines for Gamecocks and Bulldogs. And guys, we start with a topic, I should say, that I spoke on earlier this week, but I want to sort of just rehash. And, the fact that I think this is a measuring stick type of contest for both teams. That's how I'm viewing this game. You can label this a must win, an inflection point. You can label it a boomer bust game, whatever fancy title you want to put on it. But I'm viewing this as a measuring stick kind of game. Because North Carolina in week one, I almost, guys, at this point look at as somewhat of a wash because South Carolina offensively was obviously not prepared to play that football game. 9 sacks in that game. What can you really take away? And I think also you look at UNC, one of the top teams in the ACC. Furman, there's not a whole lot you can take away. And then Georgia, the number one team in the country. None of the teams you've played at this point, you are on the same footing, I think, as them. Mississippi State is a team where it's almost like a syndrome of pick on somebody your own size type of deal, right? And Mississippi State is a team and a program very comparable to South Carolina. So, what are you really? As we mentioned before, right? 2 through 13 in the SEC, you could justify nearly any team anywhere. Well, guys, this is the type of swing game, and this is the type of contest where you determine, hey, are we closer to 5th or 6th best in the SEC, or are we closer to 11th or 12th in the SEC? Like, this is one of those type of swing games. This is one of those games that helps us sort of weave our way through the madness and figure these football teams out. Because even with Mississippi State's loss last weekend at LSU, we're talking about LSU, one of the best teams, if not the best right now in the SEC, with Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors and Mason Smith on the defensive side and Harold Perkins. And there's a decent chance that could be a college football playoff caliber team. So what do we really know about Mississippi State at this point? We know this. They have one more Power 5 victory than South Carolina does. And sure, it might have been ugly against Arizona, but the fact of the matter is this: they got the job done. They won the turnover battle 5-1, had to go to overtime, but still got the victory. It is a program in a serious period of transition. It is a program you could almost call on the offensive side in disarray. But I think it is a measuring stick type of game for both teams, because I think both fan bases are sitting here sort of wondering, okay, what are we? Are we closer to an 8-win football team or a 5-win football team? And I think it's a game like this that helps you determine that. Now, speaking on this game specifically on the field, you look at the quarterback position, guys. Can Spencer Rattler stay hot? That's probably going to be one of my biggest questions week to week to week. Because what he's done at this point has been masterful, right? The composure, the confidence that he's playing with. He's doing damn near more than anybody else for his individual football team in college football. When you think about the way he is shouldering the offensive load and carrying this football team, I saw some comments that, well, this football team would be 1-2 no matter if Lenora Sellers or Luke Doty was a quarterback. And, maybe that's true, but you cannot sit here and tell me, you cannot in any way diminish the impact of what Spencer Rattler has meant to this football team. But I think it's safe to say, and I think we all agree, guys, on nights where South Carolina doesn't get the best version of Spencer Rattler, on nights in which Rattler does not play well, and hopefully those nights are few and far between. But if that's to happen, I would damn near bank on the Gamecocks losing that football game. And so, can you depend on Spencer Rattler staying hot? Because he's going to have an opportunity in this game against a Mississippi State defense that is allowing 277 yards per game through the air. To say that things set up well for South Carolina to hit big plays down the field, and, I'd be more worried about this game, guys, on the offensive side for South Carolina because we now know that Juice Wells is not going to play in this football game. I'd be more concerned about not having Juice Wells if I didn't already feel like that South Carolina hasn't had Juice Wells for the first 3 games. And I understand he had the touchdown against Georgia, and we all wish he was out there. But does it not feel like South Carolina has operated without him for most of the season anyways? And so you've kind of been able to – it's obviously a terrible thing that Juice is injured and out, but in that time, you've been able to find some other options, some other answers in the passing game from guys like Xavier Legette and Omega Blake and Eddie Lewis and Amarian Brown when he's healthy. But back to Spencer Rattler. I think you are going to continue to see him play with that confidence, that moxie, that swag. But the big question I have is, can he stay hot? Can he continue to carry this football team and put this football team on his right shoulder? Because it leaves no margin for error. Because if he just has, for some reason, an off night or an off game or what have you, it's going to put a lot of pressure on the rest of this South Carolina football team to perform and perform well and pick up the slack and go win a game. And I just don't know how South Carolina is going to respond in a situation like that, or even if they're capable of responding in that situation. Guys, I just mentioned it, but Xavier Legette shouldering the load. You look at the tape last week of what LSU did to Mississippi State, and this game sets up pretty darn well for a guy like Xavier Legette to have yet another huge game. Elite Neighbors, guys, I think hit something like 250 receiving yards in that game. And you look at Mississippi State and their secondary and what they've done defensively, and we'll talk about our key matchups as we get more into the show in our next segment, if you will. But Xavier Legette, I mean, what he's done to this point, he has been fantastic. I thought it was really cool, the tweet that our good friend Brad Crawford sent out there about, he had been getting texts about Xavier Legette looks like one of those guys that Ole Miss would trot out on the field, right? Like the DK Metcalf, like this physical specimen, like a guy that you can't match up with and can't be stopped, and you just can't say enough good things about what Xavier Legette has done to this point in this season. But is he able to continue to shoulder that load and be that guy at the wide receiver position now that we know for a fact that Juice Wells is not going to be out there? And where else does the help come from? Is it Omega Blake? Is it Amarian Brown? Is he going to be healthy? We'll probably find out a lot more as we get closer to kickoff. Is it Eddie Lewis? Does Nick Harbor finally get more action and have somewhat of a breakout game, if you will? Is it somebody else, right? Is it the tight ends? Really excited to see who South Carolina utilizes in this passing game, because I do expect the Gamecocks guys to throw the football early and often in this game. Speaking of the tight ends, guys, a big storyline for me and a question I have going in this one. Is this the game that the tight ends finally emerge for South Carolina? We heard so much about the potential impact of Trey Knox and Joshua Simon, and we've seen flashes. Those guys have been here and there, but I don't think anything like most of us expected at this point. And, I think one of the big reasons, guys, of course, is because those guys have had to stay in and pass protect and pass block and chip guys, and they really have not been featured in the passing game for those reasons. I think this is a great opportunity. I think you can find some mismatches here, again, with guys like Knox and especially Joshua Simon, because in limited action, guys, when you've seen him get the football in his hands, it is a really, really fun sight to watch. So I just wonder, is this sort of the breakout game for those guys? Do we see more from them? Do we see Spencer Rattler go into a Trey Knox or Simon as a safety valve? Do we see a Nick Elksnis more, right? A Reed McKeeska, what have you? I think for South Carolina, if they can get those tight ends going, and of course, That's going to fall on the offensive line, not having to use them in pass blocking, which we'll get into in just a second. But if you can get those tight ends going and you got your receivers, I think, coming along nicely, you feel pretty decently about where they are. And, of course, you've got the trigger man and Spencer Rattler. It is going to spell huge things for this Gamecocks offense. And I'm excited to see just what comes of those guys and what they can give you on Saturday night against a susceptible Mississippi State back half of their defense. Guys, I didn't have this one in my notes, but I feel like one of the top storylines and something that we need to talk about is the running back position. And on a week-in, week-out basis, just how is it handled, guys? And, fans have been clamoring for more Mario Anderson. I thought Dowell Loggins, in his coordinator presser yesterday, was very candid and very blunt with why Dakereon Joyner has been starting and why they play individual guys. Dowell Loggins had this to say, quote, "If someone is not playing, there is something not going on that either the player is not meeting the expectation of the coach or the player's expectation of themselves are not high enough. That is how depth chart decisions get made." I thought that was a read between the lines of Dowell Loggins saying, translation, hey, guys, we hear you. We know you want Mario Anderson and Nick Harbor and other guys to play, but guess what? They're not doing enough in practice to warrant more playing time. Now, when it comes to the Nick Harbor situation, I think you can get away with that. Okay, he's a guy transitioning to the wide receiver position, the nuances of it. I think most of us expected there to be a transition. And you've got other guys that are making impacts at wide receiver. But like when the running game's getting nothing and generating nothing, with this football team, guys, there are just questions with this team that we almost know for a fact now are going to be week in, week out question marks. They're going to be things we're looking for. And so when you talk about running game and you talk about South Carolina finding balance, that word, that B word, balance. And I'm not talking about balance 300 passing, 250 rushing, or vice versa. Can South Carolina hit 100 rushing yards? Can they hit 100 rushing yards? I'd be willing to go on record, guys, and say right now that in games that South Carolina hits 100 yards rushing this season, they'll go undefeated. Because they've got the quarterback, they've got the weapons. The thing holding this offense back, and in games in which they struggle, will be lack of balance. Getting held to 50 yards or less rushing. And so when you're having the troubles you have, like, do we see more Mario Anderson? Do the fans get what they want? Do we see Dakereon Joyner used in different ways? Do we see more of Juju McDowell in special types of packages? Do we see Dontavius Braswell used at all? But I think the big one there is Mario Anderson. And getting him more involved, getting him more action. Do the fans get what they are clamoring for? And I think most folks out there, myself included, I think Mario Anderson absolutely should get more carries. He absolutely should get more of a look. And you've got to find a way to generate some running game because Spencer Rattler leading your team in rushing again ain't going to get it done. Having 16 rushing attempts, guys, I mean, as long as you win, who cares? But I think in a game like this, especially, like finding some sort of balance, that's got to be a priority for this coaching staff and for this football team. Now, speaking of running games, speaking of finding balance, my question is this, guys. I'm going to group the offensive line and defensive line together. I'm going to group both lines of scrimmage because my question is, who is USC on the lines of scrimmage really? And is Carolina able to take what they did in Athens, build off of it, and take a step forward? Like this time next week, are we talking about an offensive and defensive lines that we say, wow, we got glimpses of it in Athens, and they were able to take that, build off of it, and they really performed and took yet another step forward against Mississippi State. It was a positive performance by both of those groups. Or do we see the Gamecocks on the line of scrimmage go back to what we've seen in the past, which is you can't run the ball and you can't stop the run because it's going to be a challenge for South Carolina up front on the defensive side, right? Woody Marks, one of the better running backs in the SEC, obviously with under Kevin Barbay, the new offensive scheme. State loves to run the football. And while Georgia rushed for, a fair amount, especially that second half, they wore you down. I think there was enough encouraging signs, guys, in that game to say, you know what? The Gamecocks could be better against the run this year. In a game like this, they could be stingy against the run. But can they do it consistently? Can we see South Carolina build off of what they did in Athens, both offensively and defensively? Because, guys, the first half against Georgia, again, you saw glimpses. I thought the offensive line, the running game was never in existence, but I thought the offensive line played their tails off. I thought the offensive line did a pretty darn good job, all things considered, protecting Spencer Rattler and giving him time to throw. And, guys, when Spencer Rattler's got a clean pocket and he sets his feet, really good things tend to happen. But I'm just wondering, both offensively and defensively in the trenches, who are these guys? Who is this football team? Because I think the thing that's been so maddening for us over the years is like the lack of consistency, like not knowing what version of the Gamecocks you're going to get on a week-in, week-out basis. Because, guys, if you go out there against Mississippi State and you get blown off the ball again and you give up 5 or 6 sacks, we're going to be sitting here thinking, like, what happened to that group we saw in Athens? What happened to that group we saw against Georgia? Like, and this thing's got a long way to go, right? Both offensively and defensively. Like, it's a work in progress on both sides. But that P word, progress, I think that's what fans want to see more than anything, is to be able to take what you did positively, work on the things that you didn't do well, and build off of that and show signs of moving forward. So who is South Carolina on the lines of scrimmage really? Is there reason to believe that they're improving week to week and taking steps forward? Or was it fool's gold in Athens and we are sitting here scratching our heads just wondering, how did I fall for it yet again? Guys, another really fun storyline in this game is Stone Blanton, a guy who was once committed to Mississippi State, was going there to play both baseball and football. He obviously decommits, flips his commitment to South Carolina, and is now taking on his hometown team. And he talked about this, guys, in his media availability on Tuesday. And I think it's always a fun matchup, right? Stone Blanton, a Mississippi guy, right? Looking forward to taking on. He probably knows that coaching staff, the ins and outs, knows Zach Arnett really, really well. And, I would not be surprised if this isn't like, there's going to be some extra juice, right, for Stone Blanton. There's going to be some extra juice looking across the field and seeing that Mississippi State logo and, seeing that coach step. He already mentioned he's going to have like 20 people in attendance in regards to family members and stuff like that. So, normally in a game like this, you see a guy, you see the main character, if you will, step up and be that dude and ball out against their hometown team, their home, their home state team, if you will. Excited to see what Stone Blanton at the linebacker position has in store. And South Carolina is going to need him in a big way, obviously, when it comes, guys, to stopping the run and slowing down a really talented Woody Marks. Guys, is this the game that we finally see a vintage game incoming for South Carolina, both defensively and on special teams? Because we have not seen it. I was going back thinking about it. You know what the Gamecocks were missing on Saturday against Georgia? They were missing that big play defensively. They were missing that big play on special teams. And we knew that was what it was going to take for South Carolina to pull the upset. You had to win the turnover margin. You had to get some big game-changing interception or fumble recovery or turnover or what have you. And you probably had to make something happen in the special teams department. And neither one of those things took place. And as we talked about all preseason, who is this football team without that? Who is this football team without Beamer ball? Who is this defense without opportunistic plays and forcing turnovers? And who are they? And I think the fact of the matter is this, guys. I'm not sitting here telling you that if South Carolina doesn't get those two things that they're not going to win this football game. But for this football team to get to the 7 or 8 win mark, guys, they've got to have that. It has to be a factor. It has to be a thing. You heard Shane Beamer talk about it on Tuesday that, hey, we haven't been up to our standard of what we want to be in special teams. You haven't seen South Carolina really win that facet of the game at all this season. Like that, the one thing you've had was the onside kick against North Carolina that unfortunately you could not capitalize on. Outside of that, guys, It's gotten to a point you got people complaining about Kai Kroger coming in this game. And also, special teams is a big-time storyline when you factor in they've got Tulo Griffin returning kickoffs and punts, if you will. He's one of the most dynamic return men in the SEC. So you better make sure not only do you not, that you better make sure that you're making plays on special teams, but also don't get beat in special teams because Mississippi State can play a little special teams on their own. So I just wonder, is there a vintage game incoming? Because we haven't seen it yet, right? We have not seen the big takeaways. We haven't seen the ball sort of bounce South Carolina's way like it did last year. And I think this one at home, at night, crowd behind you, I would not surprise if we did not see South Carolina get those type of big game-changing, game-shifting, momentum-shifting plays, if you will. And finally, guys, that leads me to my final point, my final top storyline is the environment at Williams-Brice Stadium and what it's going to be on Saturday night, guys. A sellout, the SEC home opener. Everybody's geared up for this one, guys. You look at the tickets right now, they're absolutely astronomical to go to the football game. And how is South Carolina able to ride that momentum and ride the crowd and use that to their advantage? Again, guys, like I mentioned, you talk about big plays on defense and big plays on special teams and getting your opponent flustered, if you will. And you think about Mississippi State, what they're going through offensively, and they're sort of a discombobulated mess, right? With going from the air raid to the balanced pro style of what Kevin Barbay wants to do. And Mississippi State, guys, a fun fact, has never played in Williams-Brice Stadium at night, and they haven't beaten the Gamecocks at Willie B since 1998. That was a 38-0 shutout against South Carolina, which was a noon kick. And getting the crowd behind you early, guys, I think is big. And I think this is one that Gamecock Nation, and forgive me if I'm speaking out of turn here, but I think for a lot of folks in Gamecock Nation, this is one that folks are all really excited about. I think there were encouraging signs against Georgia. The way you up 14-3 at half and the way you played them, went toe-to-toe against the Dogs. I think there's encouraging signs there. But I think there's also that devil on the shoulder for Gamecock fans where it's like, this is the ball game where we see South Carolina fall flat. This is the game where we see South Carolina, a game they quote-unquote should win, are favored to win, are expected to win, and for whatever reason, Carolina lays an egg. And that just cannot happen. You know what I mean? That cannot happen. And we have seen this South Carolina football team be a different team under Shane Beamer at home at night. So, Gamecock Nation is going to do their part. The crowd's going to be there. The environment's going to be electric. Fans are going to be loud. Guys, I mean, I was hearing the environment was crazy for the Furman game. It's going to be that times 10. The in-stadium production is going to be incredible. Sandstorm's going to be rocking. South Carolina will have everything it needs in place to have a big night on Saturday and get a much-needed victory. Will they do it? We shall see. Guys, that being said, let's jump into another quick break. On the other side, we'll keep the conversation rolling here on this Thursday. All that and more. Guys, you're tuned in to The Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose while in the office or just in your home, call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, they are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya.
Muscle doggy ho.
Ladies and gents, we are back here on this Thursday, September the 21st, 2023. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Do not forget, in our third hour, we have our Q&A Power Hour, taking your questions, comments, calls at 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377. Also, of course, coming up at 1:15, we got Mark Ryan of the Fan Upstate, talking all things Gamecocks, SEC, college football, everything in between. Guys, in the meantime, we keep the conversation rolling. 3 key matchups that I'm most keeping an eye on between the Gamecocks and Bulldogs on Saturday night under the lights at Williams-Brice Stadium. And we start, guys, on the outside. And, you know, I think Will Rogers, although Kevin Barbay and company have gone to a more balanced attack, right? I just saw right now Woody Marks is indeed leading the SEC in rushing. So they have been running the football a ton. And obviously, like you look back, guys, the numbers are crazy. I mean, Will Rogers had 17 passing attempts in a game couple of weeks ago against Arizona. They used to have 17 passing attempts in a quarter, right? I would be surprised if we don't see Mississippi State throw the football more. And who is his top target on the outside? My first key matchup is Gamecocks defensive back Marcellus Dial against Ledietrich Griffin, better known as Tulo Griffin, their top playmaker at the wide receiver position, guys. He's the only player on their roster right now with over 100 receiving yards. But again, do not let that fool you guys. This is an all-conference caliber talent. This is a dude that, again, I would expect Mississippi State, and I know that running the football and establishing the run game, especially when you look at South Carolina, that's going to be their game plan. But I will be stunned if we don't see Will Rogers and company take some shots. Like, at some point, if you're Mississippi State, if you want to have any success offensively, you got to let Will Rogers go out there and do his thing. And I think Tulo Griffin going to be a major part of that. And South Carolina secondary has been, I mean, how would you guys say thus far? It's been okay. It's been okay. But I don't know if it's dominant like last year's or 2021's. I don't know if Marcellus Dial is as good as Cam Smith. I don't know if O'Donnell Fortune is as good as Darius Rush, right? You feel good about the back end with Nick Emanwari and DQ Smith, but this matchup between these two guys, Marcellus Dial, Ledietrich Griffin, Tulo Griffin, if you will, going to be a lot of fun to watch these two dudes do battle on the outside. I think two dudes that you could see playing on Sundays in the future. My second key matchup, and as I mentioned, guys, I think it's going to be a balanced attack from State. I think, obviously, they're going to use a guy like Woody Marks, 325 rushing yards to this point. He is leading the SEC in rushing yards. And we talked about this in our last segment, a bit of a homecoming for one specific Gamecock taking on his home state team. My second key matchup, Gamecocks linebacker Stone Blanton against Mississippi State running back Woody Marks. And there was a lot of criticism of Stone Blanton in that Georgia game. A lot of folks, thought he was missing assignments. He had the late hit, obviously, on Carson Beck or whatever as he was sliding going to the ground. A lot of folks were upset with 52 and his play on Saturday. I think Stone Blanton is going to be so hyped, so amped, and so pumped up, playing like a man possessed on Saturday. And then you look at Woody Marks, man, the physical nature, a physical specimen, if you will. He's been so good for them to this point. I think they're going to obviously go back to him. He is their bell cow running back. They're going to use him early. They're going to use him often. And guys, if you want to get Mississippi State out of rhythm and off script and out of sync, if you will, offensively, slowing down Woody Marks, because that's been the one thing that they've been able to do successfully is running the football. Everything else, it's been a mystery, right, for MSU. It's been a mystery for the Bulldogs. You slow down Woody Marks, I think you slow down this Mississippi State attack. Stone Blanton, a guy in the middle, playing against his home state, his hometown team, if you will. Going to be a lot of fun to watch that matchup and that back and forth. And I think Stone Blanton, again, going to be playing like a man possessed on Saturday night. And guys, my final key matchup in this football game, we go to South Carolina's passing game. Again, guys, this is a pass defense for Mississippi State that is allowing 277 yards per game. They have been susceptible against the pass, to say the least. And with no Juice Wells, we know now for a fact, right? There's no mystery. There's no guessing. Juice Wells is out with a foot injury. It all falls on Xavier Legette. And the man he'll be lined up against all game long, DB1, CB1, the number one defensive back for Mississippi State. And my third and final key matchup, Gamecocks wide receiver Xavier Legette against Mississippi State defensive back DeCamarion Richardson. And I may be mispronouncing that too. If I am, I do apologize. But either way, Richardson for State, he had to fill in some major shoes. They lost some big-time guys out of their secondary last year, and obviously State is somewhat reeling from those losses. Also, guys, they got one of their top safeties out for a half due to a targeting penalty that he inflicted in that game against LSU last weekend. Going to Xavier Legette early and often, going to be key for Spencer Rattler. Obviously, that is his favorite target, and what Legette has done, man. I mean, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when Xavier Legette balls out, makes a big catch. I thought he was huge against Georgia, and again, you leave that game with rave reviews of 17 and what he was able to do against those Georgia defensive backs. But again, watching these two guys, watching Legette and Richardson go at it on the outside, I think there's going to be a lot of passing in this football game, guys, especially from the South Carolina side. I think they'll try to work in the run and find some balance, but there's no secret. South Carolina needs to attack this Mississippi State secondary if they're going to have success offensively, and Xavier Legette will be a major part of that. So again, guys, my 3 key matchups when the Gamecocks and Bulldogs do battle on Saturday night: Marcellus Dial against Tulo Griffin, Stone Blanton against Woody Marks, and Xavier Legette against Decamerion Richardson. Guys, that being said, let's jump into another quick break on the other side. We'll take a few questions before Mark Ryan jumps on the air, and then we'll get into our conversation with Mark Ryan, get his thoughts on everything, and also talk college football, everything in between. Looking forward to that, guys. All that and more on the other side of this break. You're tuned in to The Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge, where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose while in the office or just in your home, call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, they are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya.
That's your Dougie, ho.
Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Thursday, September the 21st, 2023. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, guys. We await Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate. He will join us in the next 8 minutes or so. But, guys, in the meantime, I figured we'll go ahead and knock this out. I was thinking about doing this at the beginning of the Q&A Power Hour today because, yes, we are going, of course, until 3 o'clock. But on the note of yesterday, the day that the way we started off the show. And let me first apologize and saying, I know I don't have to, but, in the future, I would probably much rather come to you guys with a solution in hand rather than using this time we have together as somewhat of a vent session or what have you. But I guess the reason I did that was because I like to, I've always prided myself on being transparent and being real with my audience. And so I have no issue and no problem in making decisions. I just want, especially when it affects the product and it affects the end consumer, I want folks to understand the why behind it all, right? I think the why is important. I think being real and genuine and authentic with your customer, your end consumer, I think that is very important. So, on that note of the Daily Crow and how we will proceed moving forward, some of you will love this. Some of you will hate this. Some of you may be indifferent. But in the spirit of flexibility and efficiency, which are two of my top priorities as an entrepreneur, this is how we are going to proceed moving forward. Starting Monday, the Daily Crow will be reverting back, I should say, to noon to 2. No longer will we be live noon to 3. Noon to 2. Also, what this means is the elimination of the Q&A Power Hour. The Power Hour is no more. The good news is this. We are not decreasing from 5 days to 3 days per week. We will stay at 5 days, Monday through Friday, just as you have it now. After some consideration, I think in season for football, especially, guys, 5 days per week just makes sense. I love the guest lineup we have. There's always something to talk about, and I like being live on a daily basis. When we get to January and we get to spring sports and football's kind of behind us, then we will make an adjustment to more than likely Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I have not exactly decided yet, but more than likely Monday, Wednesday, Friday is how we will operate through the basketball and baseball seasons and into the summer as well. Now, that's the good news, right? That's the good news. We're live 5 days a week. That is the good news. The bad news for some of you, the Q&A Power Hour is no more. With that being said, instead of having 5 Q&A Power Hours, 5 hours of Q&A throughout the week, what we are doing is this. I have reshuffled content to where here on the airwaves, you are going to get more much sooner, right? So we're no longer putting off predictions and SEC pick'em and all that and starting to talk about the game still Wednesday. We're going to start breaking things down on Tuesday. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is going to be full breakdown, analysis, storylines, matchups, predictions, all that good stuff, right? Friday is going to be our mailbag episode day, if you will. The first hour, going to be nothing but a mailbag. That will be your traditional Power Hour, questions, comments, calls, all that good stuff. You guys can call in. We will do that in that first hour on Fridays. That's what Friday will be for. Don't forget, you also have the post-game call-in shows to call in, what have you. Do whatever you like there. But the Q&A Power Hour, beginning next Monday, will officially be eliminated. With that being said, if you guys know, there's some dead time in the shows, right, between topics or between guests when the guest comes on or right after a guest or what have you. So, Monday through Thursday, there is a chance we take questions. And we actually, let me just say this, will take questions at some point in the show if warranted. The only questions we will take Monday through Thursday are either those submitted via Super Chat on YouTube or those submitted by those in the Big Cock Club Discord in the TDC Questions channel. If you want your questions read that badly, your thoughts, you need your thoughts known, you now have an avenue to do so. But again, guys, in the spirit of efficiency and flexibility and giving people more of what they like, this is a decision that we have made. And I obviously understand it impacts a lot of folks who call in on a daily basis, but there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people who tune into the show, and there are hundreds that tune in live on a daily basis. I'm not going to make decisions for the 3 or 4 or 5 that call in every single day. And so again, in the spirit of efficiency and flexibility, this was the best move for me. And I think this is the best move for the show. Again, I think this is going to continue to enhance content. It's a continuation of sharpening the show, sharpening the content, sharpening what we are offering to our end consumer. So again, the good news is this: we're going to stay live daily, Monday through Friday. I'm not cutting back on days. And admittedly, guys, I could have. Honestly, I could have jammed the content that I wanted to discuss in 3 days during the week. But I felt like, you know what, man? During football season, we're all looking for our fix on a daily basis. This is it. And I love doing it, right? But with that being said, the Q&A Power Hour will be no more. And instead, we will have a one-day, you see a lot of shows out there. Most shows don't do what we did with the Q&A Power Hour, right? So we're going to go to a more traditional mailbag type of episode, where we'll take your calls and we'll take your questions and we'll kind of have our free-for-all. And then during the week, Monday through Thursday, we get to the final 15 minutes of the show, or, a period like this where we have 10 or 15 minutes to kill or what have you. We'll get to Super Chats and we'll get to Big Cock Club questions. And that'll be the only questions. And we will take no calls Monday through Thursday. So again, I appreciate your love and support. I know for some of you that decision will be met with resistance. And if you have any questions, you can shoot me a DM. You can comment, what have you, but the decision has been made. So I'm coming to you all with the game plan. I'm excited for it. I think, again, we're going to be able to focus on giving you guys more of what you already love. We're going to get into game week content much sooner. Again, guys, on Thursday starting next week, you're going to get my prediction. You're going to get my analysis. You're going to get SEC Pick'em. Tuesdays, we'll start getting into game weekend content. It's really, really exciting. We're bumping everything up. And again, I think we're going to be moving in a much more efficient and a much more productive manner, truly. I think so, because it's not about how long can you work. It's not about how hard you work. It's about working smarter. It's just about working smarter, and that's what we're doing in this decision. And also, again, sharpening the content. The podcast won't change, by the way. We'll continue to drop that at 5 p.m. Eastern. Everything's good with the content. Nothing changing there. And then when we get to baseball season, when we get to spring sports, we'll reassess. But I think going live 3 days a week during then, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, is honestly, guys, more than enough with the flexibility to move it around. And, maybe 1 week we go Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, maybe 1 week it's something else. But, obviously things slow down to such a degree during that time of year that I don't think it calls for nearly the amount of shows and the amount of hours, if you will, that we invest as it does during football season. So anyways, that's subject to change. But right now is really what matters. Starting Monday of next week, Monday through Friday, noon to 2. No more Q&A Power Hour. Friday mailbag episode will be for everyone taking your questions, comments, calls. And throughout the week, you want your question answered, super chat it on YouTube or join the Big Cock Club and leave it in the TDC Questions channel. That's going to be the best way to operate, and that's how we're going to operate moving forward. So anyways, guys, let's see. Looking forward to Marc Ryan, fan upstate, jumping on, getting his thoughts, his analysis of everything. Let's see. Okay, cool. And again, guys, with change comes resistance. And I didn't do this, guys, because I dislike a caller here or there or what have you. But again, guys, this saves me about 20 hours per month. honestly. If you want me honest take on it, saves me about 20 hours a month, that I can spend putting time back in the business, sharpening content, doing other things, what have you. So again, this is the decision made. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. With that being said, he joins us every single Thursday, and it looks like he's ready to go, guys. We have got a jam-packed slate of college football upcoming this weekend, and it's always a pleasure to chat with him. Our good friend, Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate, joins us once again. Marc, what's going on, my man? Great to see you, and let me start by saying congratulations to you and your Florida Gators. What a win on Saturday night against the Vols.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you very much, man. So what's the change? Is the change no more calls?
So, yeah, we're going to go noon to 2 instead of noon to 3. We're going to eliminate the Q&A power hour Monday through Thursday. The only questions we'll take is super chats and in our Discord. And then Friday, we're going to have more of like a traditional mailbag episode where it's that first hour is nothing but questions, comments, calls, all the good stuff. Working smarter, not harder, Marc Ryan, and just trying to sharpen things up and be more efficient with my time, the content that we're producing. And so this was the decision that was made. So that's where we are, but it won't affect you at all, my friend. It won't affect you or any of our guests at all, which I'm very excited about.
Listen here, brother. Listen here. I'm trying to figure out what I can say on this. So I will say this. I am on your side as to show duration, okay? Especially when you factor in all that we have to do our jobs in today's day and age, right? Like the days, Chris, of you just being able to host a radio show and you've done your job are over, right? Right? So today, in order to thrive, not just survive, but thrive, we've got to deliver A-level content as often as possible through as many mediums as possible. And so I may or may not have argued that very case as to, do we really need a 4-hour show? Very recently, Chris, very recently. So believe you me, man, I hear you. I think as time goes on, it's going to trend away from that, because we need to be spending time on social media. We need to be spending time on video and podcast, and the show can always be part of that. Chris, as you know, man, there's always going to be a spot, I think, for local content, good local content. Mm-hmm. At the same token, our forms producing a multitude of things. So I don't think that change is going to hurt you at all.
And I appreciate the love and support, Marc. And to your point, I think people do not, and they don't have to, obviously, but people do not stop and think about the amount of time, for example, that you put in. It's not just 3 to 7. It's the hours of prep. It's the hours of post-show and analyzing what you did. Maybe you're doing some editing. Maybe you're meeting with your producer or what have you. So it becomes – it's much more than 4 hours. Like it's just, it's much more than that.
And Chris, to your point, right? To your point, like we do a 4-hour show every day, right? Mm. Do you know how much time that takes to do right? To do a show right, and this is kind of bringing your audience behind the curtain a little bit, takes 1 hour of prep time for every hour you're on the air minimum. Okay. So now if you're in my shoes, okay, that's 8-hour day just prepping the show and hosting the show. That's not accounting for all the talks I have with sales and the schedule that I put out for our station and social media usage and recording promos, right? So it's just, a 2-hour show with 2 hours of prep requires 4 hours a day. A 3-hour show with 3 hours of prep requires 6 hours a day, right? So I do think I do not disagree, Chris, with your decision. I think that's the most diplomatic way I can do like John Mayer said and say what I need to say,
Indeed, Marc. And again, I appreciate your support. Let's talk some college football, my friend. Look back on the week that was. Obviously, let's start with your Gators. What did you see that you liked? Obviously, jumped all over Tennessee. It was, admittedly, Marc, I watched South Carolina, Georgia. We did the post-game call-in show, which ran till about 8:30, and I looked up and I cut on the game. 26-7 at the half. I'm like, what is going on? Trevor Etienne, the running game. I thought Graham Mertz was very efficient. And, there's life is not so smooth after Hendon Hooker after all for Tennessee. But your overall thoughts and really most importantly, like what that win, what it means for Billy Napier, right? Because they've been selling the recruiting success and We're headed in the right direction, but nothing can beat what winning does for you. And that was a huge win on Saturday.
I've never felt, Chris, the narrative change for a head coach more on one game than what Billy Napier. Now, look, who knows what the future holds, Chris? But you know as well as I do that the Billy Napier arrow was pointing down heading into that game, right? Like the arrow overall, start of year 2, the arrow was pointing down. Now the arrow is clearly pointing up. You're right on Tennessee, Chris. Suddenly for the Gamecocks, the Florida game might be less winnable than it was. The Tennessee game might be more winnable than it was. But I just want to know, Chris, do you have anything to say about having the Gators second to last in your preseason SEC rankings? I'll have you know, kind sir, I'll have you know that in my most recent power rankings in the SEC, Florida is 5th. And I actually think that might be conservative considering what I saw on Saturday. Look, long season ahead. Who knows how this is going to play out? I asked myself today, Chris, Mark, if somebody could tell me that the Gators would finish the season in the top 25. They're in the top 25 right now in one of the polls. If they finish the season in the top 25, if they finish the season 25th, would I take that right now? Yes, I would take that. I would take that right now. Year 2, Billy Napier with that schedule. But we talked about it, Chris. This week, it's crazy to me that we have Clemson's D-Day week, South Carolina's D-Day week on the exact same week. Last week, it was Florida, and they passed the test. So they survived. It is possible now to make something of this season. A loss to Tennessee would have made that an impossibility.
And Mark, to your point, you are right. I had Florida ranked 13th in my SEC power rankings. And believe it or not, I had some people daring to tell me that was too high. So take that for what it's worth. But I actually do. I gave Florida their props. I bumped the Gators up to 5th as well. I've gotten some grief for my power rankings because are they really power rankings? But I factor in a number of things when I do the power rankings. And some of it's just, are you deserving? And you beat a team like Tennessee the way they did. I think they were deserving to make a big jump. Now we look at South Carolina, Mark. You were much more on the mark than I was. I was pleasantly surprised. I thought it was going to be yet another blowout loss. And listen, you called the close game.
Showered with compliments.
Yeah, listen, you had a good weekend. You had a good weekend, man. You called the close ball game. Score was a little bit different, but you called a very, very competitive ball game in this one. What did you see from South Carolina? And, I know you and I talked about this earlier in the week, like no moral victories, and you thought the Gamecocks fan base had actually done a really good job of not accepting moral victories. And I think, as I told you, it's because you had victory in your grasp, and it wasn't a situation where Georgia was up 24-0 and you scored 14 late and you're kind of beating your chest over it. Like South Carolina fans, I think you got to a point in that game you expected to win, and you didn't, and it was disappointing. But as you move forward, Mark, what did you see from South Carolina that you think positives that can be taken away, that they can carry on? And maybe did it give you more hope that South Carolina can be closer to that 7 or 8 win team that we thought they could be, and not so much that 5 or 6 win team that I think we thought they might be after UNC?
Yeah, this is more widening the lens, Chris. It's more macro than micro. But the fact that the last 3 times South Carolina played Georgia, they lost by an average of 32 points, and they lost by 10. The wide lens view is they belonged on the field with Georgia. That's not meant as a backhanded compliment. It's just that we haven't seen that since 2019, right? So, yeah, you're disappointed. You can throw question marks up about the play calling in the second half. Why did they get away from being aggressive? Why did they maybe look like they played scared a little bit in the second half? Oh, my God, are we really going to do this? That's fair, right? But what's also fair is that they gave Georgia all they could handle. Now, it's to those people who want to live in a black and white world. Oh, Mark, that sounds like a moral victory. No. The thing I was most impressed with, Chris, is that the Gamecock fan base has now graduated past accepting moral victories. That is a massive step in the growth of the program. Because as you always hear me say, Chris, ultimately your program will be a reflection of what you as a fan base accept. And if you're patting them on the back after losses, that's what you're always going to be. Okay? The tail is always going to be wagging the dog. So I love that I'm seeing Gamecock fans pissed, miffed, bent about the fact that the Gamecocks didn't win that game, man, that is a great sign. And what it tells me, Chris, is as long as you got Rattler out there, you got a chance in any ball game. You can't convince me otherwise. How many other SEC teams are going to be within 10 of Georgia? How many are going to be good enough to have a lead at halftime? That's the good, Chris. The bad and the ugly is this looks more like a one-man team now than I've ever felt before.
And so I think, Mark, the big question now becomes is, and I guess one of my fears, and I feel like South Carolina's in a good position with Spencer Rattler because obviously in this Dowell-Loggins scheme, he's confident, he's clicking on all cylinders. I mean, that's the big thing for Rattler, I think, comparing last year to this year is like, as long as he's playing confidently and within the system and sort of playing freely, if you will, like you're probably going to get a pretty good version of him, but we're all human. So like on a night in which he's off, is South Carolina able to overcome that and win a ball game? And with what? Like, what is their second pitch? I don't know what it is that, and I know you mentioned this, Jake Crane mentioned this. I said this yesterday that, and we can argue it for sure, but I mean, Spencer Rattler, there are few teams out there that they have one individual player that's more important to their success than Rattler is. I mean, it's just when you look at what he's doing for this offense right now, carrying this football team.
Chris, with Spencer Rattler, this team could be 7-5 or 8-4. Without Spencer Rattler, this looks like a 3-9 bunch. Because without Spencer, I'm not meaning that to be insulting, Chris. Yeah. I'm not, I'm just, the defense is ranked 104th right now, right? The offensive line, if you looked at advanced statistics, might be worse than that. So, Chris, we talked all offseason about the fact that the Gamecocks were the only team in America that finished with a winning record that was below rank 100 in rush offense and rush defense. In advance of this call, I haven't yet seen those stats. I don't want to look at them through just 3 games, Chris, this year. But suffice to say, it's not better. You know what I mean? Like those things aren't better right now than they were previously. So, what I'm struggling with and what I want to ask you about is, the fact that in year 3 is where the studs are separated from the duds in college football, right? In terms of head coaching. So, with that being said, Chris, does the belief level drop in Shane Beamer if this is a somewhat forgettable season? If this is a limp to 6-6, does the belief level fall in Beamer a bit?
Mark, as I said about Billy Napier, I'll say about Shane Beamer. No coach is immune to the effects of losing. I don't care how much goodwill you've built up or what you've done in recruiting or how many fancy slogans you've put together or that this was your dream job. No coach is immune to it, Mark. So, I think it would take I think 6-6 or worse. I think people would start, some would start to lose. I mean, Mark, you have 3 sides of this, right? Like you have 3 sectors of folks. You've got your negative, pessimistic, like they are almost just waiting for something bad to happen. These are the doom and gloomers, I think, that Shane Beamer probably speaks out and lashes out at a decent amount. Then you got people that are going to support Shane Beamer blindly no matter what because he's their head coach. And then you've got the law. I can't stand
those people, by the way.
Right.
I can't stand whether it's Clemson, Florida, South Carolina, have an objective lens. Those are the people that I respect.
Yeah. And I think each of those I just mentioned makes out about 10%, about 20%. I think your vast majority, the 80% in the middle of kind of more of just kind of your rational fan. I think the folks that tune into TSUS because it's not sunshine pumping, but it, gives you both sides, sees both sides. So like, will there be faith lost? Yeah, I think there will be. I think it's natural, man. Like you mentioned, I mean, 3rd year, we know it's, it's boom or bust. It's kind of, you start to figure out, is this guy the guy? Is he not? So, if you go 6-6, I don't think there's a single Gamecock fan out there, obviously, that would say that was meeting expectations. And again, as much as we love Shane Beamer, and I mean, that's kind of the funny thing, right, Mark? Like I remember back during the summer, the conversations of like Shane Beamer's basically untouchable. And it's like, people asking me, is he going to win the national title? Is he going to win the SEC championship? Like this would never happen. We'd never feel this way. And then obviously you got in very hot water for the Muschamp Beamer comparisons. And I'm not trying to bring that back up or say that the comparison's spot on, but all I'm saying is this. I remember a time where Will Muschamp was beloved by Gamecock fans. I remember that when I called for his job, people did not respond. Some people did not respond to it rather well. But all I'm saying is this. When he's your guy, like when you hire the guy, nobody thinks they could ever get to a point where they want the coach fired. But Mark Ryan losing does some funny things to you. So I think if this is a disappointing season, I mean, I remember Mark vividly last year, the week of the Tennessee game after the 38-6 beatdown of Florida. You had Gamecock fans on this show questioning Shane Beamer at that point. So
look, they most certainly will, Chris. And this is why I've said, Chris, that Shane Beamer is not on the hot seat, but he is under pressure. There's a difference between those two things, right? Billy Napier's not on the hot seat, but he is under pressure. And Billy Napier removed quite a bit of that pressure on himself last week. Shane Beamer has an equal opportunity to do so this week. You know, Chris, if I know you make your predictions later in the week, and I don't know how much your audience overlaps with mine. I see a few people in the comments that do. I think South Carolina is going to absolutely open a can on Mississippi State this week. I was the moron, Chris, and let me tell you, man, I'm doing really well. I'm 7-2 on my bets thus far this year, but one of my 2 L's was Mississippi State last week, which was my upset pick. I was watching that. I was floored. Do you know they had 9 consecutive plays? 9 consecutive plays, Chris, that went for 0 or negative yards against like all summer long. I'm like, Will Rogers, first team All SEC, second team All SEC. Is that Will Rogers or Mr. Rogers? You know, like what is going on there with that school? What's going on is, rest in peace, they lost the one and only genius head coach. There's no other guy that can call the plays, when the plays. It's not calling Mike Leach's plays. It's not calling Steve Spurrier's plays. It's how they call them and when they call them that made them the geniuses that they are, right? And so, Chris, I think you could see a South Carolina offense that explodes and a South Carolina defense that gets healthy. Don't put a result like 40-16 South Carolina. Don't put that out of the question, all right?
And so, Mark, actually some fun news for you. Starting next week, because of the changes with the show, I will actually start dropping my predictions on Thursdays. So you will know. We'll be able to. We'll have some fun with that for sure. But yeah, okay. So you got Carolina taking Mississippi State to the woodshed. I will tell you, I had Bulldogs +10 also, and I was not thrilled with what I watched. I believe they had 7 yards just before halftime. 7 yards.
Bro, that is what we call a statement. LSU got tired of being told how bad they are in Florida State. And, you know, the craziness of college football, Chris, and the madness behind trying to make sense of all this, right? You know, is that LSU would have rolled the effort that Florida State put forth against Boston College, right? LSU would have rolled that Florida State team. But because the effort is so different from week to week, you know, if the LSU game didn't have a lot of hype behind it, LSU rolls them. Now you got a mad LSU team. People are calling Mississippi State like yahoos like me and you are calling it their upset pick of the week. And man, from the get-go on that one, it was very clear there was a major talent discrepancy, and the boys in purple and gold were how should we say, not happy. So that pain was felt. You know, Chris, who is the second best team in the SEC? I still have LSU. Everyone's telling me Ole Miss is going to beat Alabama this weekend. That to me is too predictable. At home, Nick Saban, I think, circles the wagons. It is shocking to me that Saban's team finds himself in kind of a Florida Gator predicament at quarterback, where he's going to bench Jalen Milroe, bring him back in the same game, and then all of a sudden now he's the starter for the rest of the season. Like, you know, it's incredible. And suddenly I find myself here on my own. How's everybody doing today?
Whoa. My apologies, Mark. We just crashed there for some reason. I don't know. The Muschamp Packers working hard today. Anyways, continue, my friend. I do apologize for that. Sorry.
Yeah. So, you know, I can't believe that Alabama finds itself in this quarterback quandary, Chris. And, you know, Ty Simpson, Tyler Buckner, they transfer there. They transfer there so they can get 1 quarter of play. Now they're benched again for the rest of the year. Alabama's in a really, really weird spot right now. I don't know that they lose this week at home to Ole Miss, though. I just think the talent level 1 through 22 is a lot higher at Alabama. Plus, you get them at home. Night game at Ole Miss, that might be a little bit different, right? But we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, to your point, Mark, I actually agree with you on the Bama Ole Miss game, and I'm someone that picked Bama to go 9-3 over the summer. I don't think this is one of the three, though. And to your point, I like Ole Miss. I like Jackson Dart. I like Quinshon Judkins. I got to get him going. But it's one thing to beat Tulane and Georgia Tech and be what Ole Miss is. But when you talk about going into Tuscaloosa and taking down the Giant, that is a whole other ball game. And so I do think Bama gets a bounce back win, covers the number. And I think Jalen Milroe should have been the quarterback all along, and I think he plays well, and I do think they will get the W. Mark, really quickly, back to the South Carolina side of things, because I want to close out with this on the Mississippi State game, then we'll move to some other things. But you mentioned that this is a boom or bust game, Gamecocks and Bulldogs. Admittedly, my Gamecock PTSD is telling me that this one's going to be a little bit more uncomfortable than I would like it to be. And I guess what I'm fearful of is we've seen South Carolina in spots where – they're quote unquote supposed to win. They're favored to win. The fan base is expecting to win. And then South Carolina pisses down their leg and just does things that go beyond comprehension. And so I wonder, Mark, is South Carolina able to showed progress in Athens? Wasn't perfect, but showed progress in Athens. Can they take that and build off of it? Because I think it's this program's inconsistencies that make me weary. Like, is it going to make sense? It never seems to make sense with South Carolina. But back to your point, man, the boom or bust, how big of a game do you think this is for Shane Beamer in year 3 of his tenure?
It's everything. Chris, it's literally everything. Clemson and South Carolina have their boom or bust games on the same week. Now, Chris, you are almost exclusively South Carolina, okay? I am Clemson. I am South Carolina. I am all of college football. Imagine the plight that I'm going to be in, Chris. Our show is going to be in if Clemson loses and South Carolina loses. Okay, I might as well just shift my show to being a crisis hotline. Okay, like if that happens this week, I mean, it's going to be that way. You're going to have listenership drop off. You're going to have people feeling down and depressed. I root for Chris, the teams that I cover, to do well, not just for business, right? Because when you start to cover a team, you start to get to know them, you start to care. You know what I mean? I want Gamecocks and Clemson fans to view me as their tough love friend. You know what I mean? I am a friend, but I'm here to shoot straight with you. Okay? I'm here to tell you I wouldn't date you either. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the friend that I want to be. And it's crazy to me. It's so fascinating that both teams have that week right now. In the Gamecocks case, Chris, I mean, you know it. The positive is, if the worst it gets all year, okay, after the North Carolina game is a 10-point loss to Georgia, man, the future might be so bright you need shades, okay? But if the inconsistencies that have historically plagued South Carolina creep up again, man, how ugly could this get, right? Because the North Carolina game wasn't a true road game, and that wasn't pretty. The Gamecocks have had a history of being a far different team at home than they've been on the road, right? So then you're looking at the next stretch of 4 games, all SEC, 3 out of 4 on the road, right? Is Florida the best chance for a win of those 4 games? Has Texas A&M found something, righted themselves to a degree by that game? Does Missouri ride that crazy 61-year-old kick from the guy who trademarked the phrase thicker kicker? Did you hear that? He trademarked
I did not know he trademarked it.
Yeah,
I respect
thicker kicker. It's incredible. Do they parlay that into, a top 25 season at Missouri? We don't know the answers to that yet, but this is the get well week for South Carolina, Chris, and it damn well better be the get well week, because it's too late to get well if you drop this one.
Let's shift gears, Mark, to that Clemson and Florida State game, because I as you know, right, you've seen it. We've seen it at both fan bases. Like, the Gamecocks are going to be watching this game. I know I'm going to be watching. I'm not ashamed to say it. One of the biggest games in college football this weekend.
And
I think
shockingly, you're going to be rooting for Garnet again. Shockingly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a lot of Garnet. I hope Garnet does well. But a game that I'm just, I think is fascinating. It's going to shape. It could go a long way in shaping the the college football playoff. Obviously with what Florida State has going on, and they're a team that I think a lot of folks are now expecting to be in. But Clemson with Dabo, I mean, backs are against the wall, man. Can they afford to fall to 0-2 in ACC play? And I thought the line this week, Mark, was interesting because it's a noon game in Clemson. So, Clemson doesn't get the luxury of the night game, the crazy environment. I'm sure it'll still be a great environment, but I think FSU caught a break by that game being at noon for sure. 1.5-point favorite. What do you make of that? I mean, I think most look at that and say Clemson has no chance. What say you about this game?
Chris, if you made it a blind resume, okay, if you said number 4 against unranked, what's the line? Okay. How about if I said to you, blind resume, number 4 against unranked, what's the line? And then let me show you number 10 Oregon against number 19 Colorado. Oregon's favored by 21 points. What's the line then on my number 4, unranked, right? What this is the biggest disagreement between the poll voters and Las Vegas that you have ever seen. Okay. That's exactly what is going on right now. And still Clemson being punished for a loss against a Duke football team that is far better than anyone thought they would be. If Clemson loses this game, the fire and brimstone in the upstate is going to reach a level that it hasn't reached since folks wanted Dabo fired in year 3. Okay? It will reach that level if Clemson loses this game. And if Clemson loses this game, Chris, let me make this clear to you. The season's done. It's done. Okay? You can take them out of the oven. They're done. Okay? Chris, Florida State, Duke, Clemson loses this game. Those two schools have 0 ACC losses. They would have to lose 3 in conference play for Clemson to pass either one of them. Okay? So, if you are a Gamecock fan and Clemson loses, celebrate the fact that their season, anything they wanted to do, you have the right to celebrate that their season is cooked. Okay? Now, again, I want Clemson to win. I want South Carolina to win this week. I don't want to have 3 months of shows where I'm talking fans off the ledge. It's exciting for us, right? It's exciting for our engagement, Chris. When the teams we cover fare well, you get to know these people. You want good things. If you're a good person, you want good things to happen to them. I do want Clemson to beat Florida State this weekend, and not just because I hate every fiber of the Seminoles being a Florida Gator alum and fan, right? But the reality is, Chris, a loss, and it's all she wrote. Roll credits on 2023.
Mark, will you be at that game? I know you guys venture. You will. Okay, so you will be in attendance. Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I will be watching that one. I am fascinated to see because since that Duke game, Clemson's rolled Charleston Southern and Florida Atlantic. So what improvements have they made since week 1, I guess, and obviously going to go a long way in the ACC in determining that. Mark Ryan of the Fan Upstate. Mark, last thing before I get you out of here, obviously, like you mentioned, you don't just talk Gamecocks and Clemson, but you talk all of college football. What are you most looking forward to from week 4 in the college football season? Anything jump out to you? Obviously, we have Ohio State and Notre Dame's a big one. You mentioned the Alabama and Ole Miss game, but anything catch your eye going into this weekend of college football?
Yeah, Chris, it's this. It's that I don't think the winner of Notre Dame, Ohio State is okay. You're going to begin to see a separation from the pack for the Michigans, the Georgias, and maybe even the Texases of the world. I've been incredibly impressed with Washington, Kalen DeBoer, year 2, Michael Penix Jr., right? How about the case for guys like that are making Gator fans, South Carolina fans feel better about that transfer quarterback, their transfer quarterbacks? Chris, sometimes it can be the situation. The situation just isn't right. Michael Penix Jr. was a mediocre QB at Indiana. Look at what he's doing to Washington right now, man. No one has a chance against the Washington Huskies right now. So I really look at this weekend, Chris. What is intriguing me is I think we begin to get that separation in terms of the tiers of college football this weekend. And I hope, Chris, we're both still talking about meaningful football when you and I reconvene next week. We do a segment called Truth Serum, Chris, where we give you 4 statements and the audience votes on which statement is most likely to be proven true over time. One of the 4 statements yesterday was Clemson and South Carolina both lose. The other one was Clemson and South Carolina both win. South Carolina has a 60% chance of winning. Clemson has a 60% chance of losing. But as you know, man, what that means is 2 wins or 2 losses are very, very possible. Very possible.
Separation Saturday, says Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate. Check him out every single day, 3 to 7. Marc, you guys do a fantastic job, and I appreciate you taking the time weekly to jump on our airwaves.
I appreciate you guys. Would love to have you follow us on Twitter. We'd appreciate that greatly if you'd like to do so. And by the way, if you can tell everybody that you talk to that, man, that Marc Ryan guy, he really is objective. He says some things about my team that I really don't like sometimes, but he truly is objective. I'm at Marc Ryan on air. That's at MARC Ryan on air. Chris, congratulations on all the blessings in your life, man. You've earned them. We'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate you, Marc. Thank you so much.
Great
stuff, guys. Great stuff from Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate. Does a fantastic job, and appreciate him taking the time. Okay, that being said, guys, we are going to jump into a quick break, but on the other side, we will dive into our Q&A Power Hour. And I want to hear from you, your questions, your comments, your calls, and more on the other side of this break. You're tuned in to The Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose while in the office or just in your home, call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, they are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya.
Muscle doggy ho.
All right, guys, we're back here on this Thursday, September the 21st, 2023. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Want to say once again, thank you to Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate for taking the time to chat here on this Thursday, as he always does. And now, if I can spit the words out, again, thank you to Marc Ryan for taking the time to chat. With that being said, guys, our Q&A Power Hour officially begins. I want to hear from you. 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377. One of the last 2 days that the Q&A Power Hour will be in this format, so make sure you take advantage of it today. Phone lines are indeed open. Again, thank you all so much. We'll get through your questions here on YouTube. Let's see. Darren says, what's up? Cox 37, Mississippi State 22. Okay, I could rock with that. Brianna says that's Lady Bree, not until the O-line can protect. Lady Bree says so many issues are still coming back to the O-line. I rear running game. Guess what? O-line defense is on the field too long. O-line. Coleman Hall says Dowell's comments are weird. Said dude needs to hush and just say something like I put the players on the field who I think give us the best chance to win. He says, if my boss said some sly shit like that and our run game was trash, I'd be a little offended. Lady Bree says, Marcus Lattimore can't run with this line. I'm sorry, pointing at DK at this point is silly. I don't totally disagree, Lady Bree. I mean, I will say, though, if you ask me right now, who is a better ball carrier, who's a tougher runner, I'm going to go with Mario Anderson. Like, Mario Anderson's actually a running back. But I would agree with you that the number one issue is not the Kerryon Joyner. It's the fact the offensive line can't open a hole. It's pretty simple, honestly. Kamen says it's simple. No matter what year, no matter what team, no matter what coaching staff, we play to the level of our opponents. We always have. Let's see. Going back through the Big Cock Club Discord. By the way, guys, confirmed Woody Marks, 325 yards, is the leading ball carrier in the SEC. Second, Jalen Wright with Tennessee, 296 yards. Trevor Etienne, 281 over at Florida. That's your top three. Greg Bedinger in the Big Cock Club Discord said, can we compare our punting average after 3 games this year versus last year? We could. I have not done that research, Greg, is the only thing. So Noah Hudson says, Joyner's not running back material. Okay. B. Will, we always thought Muschamp wasn't it, but he was hired already. Indeed. Brendan, what's going on? Wow, USC Edit says Locked On Gamecocks has officially jumped the Spurs Up show. Has it? Okay. I did not know that. I didn't know the Gamecock podcast power rankings came out this week. No, listen, they do a good job. Andrew Lyon and those guys at Locked On Gamecocks does a good job. There's so many great options for folks to choose from when it comes to Gamecocks and SEC and college football, man. It's a blessing. It's a blessing for sure. It is a blessing. Ethan K says, I think Rattler has now turned to a round 2 or 3 quarterback in the draft and possibly first round if he stays consistent all year. I think so as well, for sure. I mean, he's making himself – I think Spencer Rattler's making himself a lot of money this year. Madison Duncan, my number one question is about running backs, and it goes like this. Do we have one? Well, we do, Madison. The question is, do we have an SEC caliber RB1? Unfortunately, I think the answer to that is no. Let's see. USC Edit says, Chris, I'm not going to lie. The quote you posted from Loggins just saying the video is completely out of context, misleading. I was mad when I heard he said that, but then I watched the press rooms too. Yeah, I posted USC Edits kind of as like jokingly. Like I knew what he was saying, but it sounded funny. So it worked well for content. Let's jump to the phone lines here.
Call from
Robbie Davis, Zaxby's Hall of Famer.
Robbie Davis, what's going on? You're on the air.
Hey, how are you doing on this Thursday?
I'm doing fantastic, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I did a lot of thinking over the last few days, and I've got my prediction ready to go.
I would love to hear it, my friend. What you got?
My prediction is 38-17.
38-17 Gamecocks. Okay. I'd take that in a heartbeat, man. I like that pick.
Solely because of just now, am I expecting their defense, Mississippi State's defense, to play that poorly this week? No, but there's a possibility they could, and if they do, I just feel like that could be the outcome of the game Saturday night. So based off of that fact, that's what I'm going with.
I like it, Robbie. Listen, I like the pick. I hope you're right.
Me too. I would love to be right. I don't like eating crow. So, and I definitely could see our defensive line figuring out a way to get pressure on Rodgers, and I think we will, because like I said yesterday, right? He's the kind of guy that where if he gets pressured, he does not do very well and is not very accurate. If he has to throw on the run, I did notice that while they were playing LSU last week, that he was not that accurate when throwing on the run. So we have to figure out a way to where we can make him a sitting duck, okay? Because and still rattle him that way, and get some turnovers and capitalize off of it. Because if there's ever a time for our secondary to show up and show what they're made of, it's Saturday. Because Mississippi State's offense is a pass heavy offense. So I think that they will be ready to go Saturday night against Mississippi State.
Yeah, I think this is a team's going to be rearing to go, man. They know how big this game is, and at Willie B under the lights, I think that folks will be fired up. This team will be fired up. I think they ride that wave of emotion, and I think the crowd will do everything they need to do to make this happen.
Oh, for sure, and it's sold out, so it's going to be rocking for 3 to 3.5 hours. So I'm really excited for it. So, but that's all I got. That's my prediction, and I will try to call in for the post-game call-in show Saturday night.
Yeah,
I ain't too exhausted.
Yeah, we'll be live right after, man. So if you're on the drive home or you're back at the tailgate or whatever you're doing, we'll be live immediately following the game. And, going to be a good time, man. Robbie, I appreciate you calling in. 38-17, lock it in. The Zaxby's Hall of Famer has his prediction.
Yes, indeed. The one and only Zaxby's Hall of Famer. Yes.
Indeed.
All right, buddy. Have
Robbie,
a great day, okay?
Yeah, you're the man. I appreciate it. 38-17 is what Robbie Davis has. We moved to the comments. Brewwood Nation's been asking this for like 3 days. If we lose, who's getting fired? Brewwood Nation, I don't think anybody's getting fired. I'll be honest with you. Let's look at these scenarios for this game, guys, because I will say it's a game that admittedly I feel as if South Carolina should win. But I felt as if South Carolina should win a lot of games, and the Gamecocks have found ways to surprise me. If Mississippi State is going to win this football game, I think it's going to be because South Carolina had no answer for Woody Marks on the ground. I think it's going to be because Kevin Barbay put together a game plan in which Will Rogers is actually able to throw the football. And guys, I think it would honestly take an off night from Spencer Rattler. I think that's really what it would come down to. If Mississippi State's going to win the football game, I mean, I think we, also, of course, the Gamecocks being one-dimensional could make things difficult, not being able to win first down and get into some third manageable, second and manageables, if you will. So, it's weird to come into a game like this, and the spread is only 6, right? It's not like it's some 13 or 14-point spread. Is there a Gamecock fan out there that's not expecting the Gamecocks to win? But at the same time, and I guess what's scary to me, that's exactly how folks felt about the UNC game. And we all saw how that went. So it's a fascinating game, guys, but it's just one that South Carolina, has to have. It's going to be ugly, to say the least, if the Gamecocks are not able to get the victory. It's going to be ugly. I was actually thinking about this. Admittedly today. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, do you think the numbers would be greater? Not just the post-game call-in show, but like the following week. Would the numbers be greater if South Carolina were to win and get their first SEC win of the season? Or would the numbers be greater if Carolina lost and folks were looking to, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, it's weird how significant losing brings people out. Because, guys, we still haven't had a post-game call-in show that got more attention, more traction than week 1 against North Carolina. We haven't had one. We have not had one. So, that's just sort of where we are. I don't know. It's losing brings folks out. And Brewer Nation says numbers are always better after a loss, which sucks. I hate that, but it really is that's truly how it goes, Brewer Nation. For whatever reason, misery just loves company. So it is what it is. Anyways, guys, 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377. So like I mentioned, guys, in case you missed it, this time next week, the Q&A Power Hour will no longer be a thing, and we will be done with the show. In case you missed the updates, guys, we are making some changes to the Daily Crow. We are making some changes to the Daily Live Show. We will be live daily, Monday through Friday, but eliminating the Q&A Power Hour and instead going to a more traditional mailbag episode on Fridays. So, with that being said, let's jump to the phone lines here.
Call from to accept.
What's going on? You're on the air. Hello. All right,
Hey,
we're gonna go to our next call. Oh, I
Call
think that was
from
John Edward. Oh,
Will from Dirty Myrtle.
Here we go. Will, what's going on, man? You're on the air.
What's good, buddy? Just calling to say a couple things. First off, I don't think I've talked to you since the Georgia game. Just wanted to reiterate that pretty proud about our performance there. I thought that we came out with a really good scripted game plan, and those plays worked well, and that was probably the best opening drive I've seen in a long time from the Gamecock team on the road under Shane Beamer, maybe the best ever. Little bit disappointed with the second half, but, they just got more Jimmys and Joes than we do currently right now. I think the real big game was a lot of it was fault. I don't know how many we had, but we had to have like 6 or 7, right? I don't know. It was a lot.
6 or 7 what, you said?
And, also, offensive line played, I thought, pretty good for the most part, considering who they were playing. And going forward to this week here, just an absolute do-or-die game, one we have to have. I think that if we can come out and get off to a good start like we did last week, we got a much better chance of holding that lead. Curious to see what Gear does in his first action as a Gamecock, because he is playing, right, Chris?
Yeah, they're hopeful. I think we'll find out more tonight, but it sounds like they're hopeful he is going to be a go.
Yeah, so hopefully of a difference. Really happy with what he's doing. I mean, probably the best defensive lineman performance this year. He's good, and just absolutely excited about this weekend. It should be a lot of atmosphere on the night game. But yeah, just curious to see how the run game's going to work, and if Spencer can continue to do what he's doing, which is probably on route to breaking the passing record for a single season. By a good day at this point, it looks like he's going to do that. So just want to get your thoughts on that, Chris. I'll hang up and listen.
Will, I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for the call. And I think we lost Will a couple of times, but I'll say this: getting Jatius Gear back would be massive. I think this defensive front has been really, really missing his presence, and I know that he hasn't played yet for South Carolina, but the real true presence of a big time pass rusher. You look at what he did at Syracuse, and I think getting him back will be huge, especially when you're going up against a quarterback like Will Rogers. And I'm sorry, guys, I just read a comment in the comments that Bruin Nation is throwing me off. Anyways, though, yeah, I mean, I think definitely labeling this game as a do or die ball game is a great way to put it. I think it's a great way to put it. It's a massive game for South Carolina. So, and you need Spencer Rattler to continue to be the good version of Spencer Rattler and keep what he's doing, keep the positive momentum, and just stay hot. I mean, it's really going to come down to, in the SEC this season, as I mentioned yesterday, what Michael Bratton said, man, what time do you play? Where do you play? And does your quarterback get hot? And the Gamecocks have the home field advantage. You got this game under the lights. And, you got a hot Spencer Rattler right now. You just need him to stay hot. So I think South Carolina's in good position, but definitely, man, has the feeling of a do or die type of ball game. I'm going to read this comment because it's so damn funny. I don't care if you take it personally, so be it. Bruin Nation says, I'd rather listen to Dale and Rebecca have phone sex than hear John Edward Kruger's awful takes. John Edward Kruger, don't take it personally, but that is funny. That's funny. If he said that about, if Bruin Nation said that about me, substitute John Edward Kruger from me, I would still think that was funny. So, comment of the day maybe goes to Bruin Nation. Good stuff. Pimp on a blimp. Hardesty getting his ass canned after this year, and Limbo leaves for another job. Really? You think Limbo would leave for another job? Bruin Nation, if we lose this game, I honestly think you see Gamecock Nation lose their shit more than ever. I could see that, Bruin Nation. This, folks, will be on – it will not be good. Let's just put it that way.
Call from
Will from Dirty Myrtle.
There he is. Oh, okay, and he just hung up. Phone lines are acting kind of funky today. I don't know what's going on. So, I don't know what's going on. You want to call back in, you're more than welcome to do so. 843-790-3377. By the way, guys, I know it's football season. Nobody wants to hear about it, but guys, in a couple of weeks, I'm doing it this year, whether folks complain about it or not. We will start the countdown to basketball season. 31 days. The season officially tips off November the 6th. That's not that far away. Believe it or not, that is not that far away. We'll start talking basketball, man. We're going to incorporate basketball content into the show. And, I think we're going to do things like SEC power rankings and talk SEC basketball, if you will, more than we probably ever have. So, obviously, football is king, and football is going to take precedent, and that's what we're going to focus on. But, dude, tip-off's just around the corner. Tip-off is just around the corner. GA says, but why? It's funny, man. Like, if we had, like, a power ranking of interest in basketball, and I know some of you will adamantly disagree, but I'm just telling you from my perspective, I think there are a few fan bases that care less about men's basketball in the SEC. I really do. Like, who would you say cares less about men's basketball in the SEC? Maybe Georgia. Maybe Georgia does. I think everybody in the West cares. Like, maybe LSU doesn't a ton, but, like, they're pretty decent normally. So maybe LSU doesn't, but Auburn's really good. Arkansas is really good. Alabama is really good. Mississippi State's been really good, right? Ole Miss has been good. I mean, it's really Carolina and Georgia that are kind of like, Texas A&M's been really good. Like, it's really Carolina and Georgia that are at the bottom of, like, their fan bases could not give less of a damn about basketball. And I just, what? Maybe that's bad for me to say. But dude, that's what I see. And I think I think with Gamecock Nation, I think this is the view on men's basketball. This is the view on men's basketball. And really basketball as a whole, and if you don't like that, then challenge me on it. This is the take by Gamecock folks on men's basketball. If South Carolina's winning, the support will be there. Like, Gamecock fans will show up for a winner no matter what the sport is. But if South Carolina's men's basketball is average or worse, it literally is just that thing that occupies our time between the end of football season and baseball season. That's really what basketball is at this point. Like, I think a lot of you out there wouldn't even give a damn if I didn't even talk about basketball. Like, truly. Like, I've normally done so to just be well-rounded in my content. I don't want to be like a one-trick pony and talk just football. And obviously, I love baseball, obviously. I can't wait to talk SEC baseball, man. It's going to be a blast. But not a lot of love for basketball, man. Not a lot of love for basketball at all in the SEC and especially in Columbia. I just, you know, but I am excited for the season. I think the Gamecocks could actually be better this year. Again, I can't believe we're talking basketball here in mid-September, but, you know, I just thought it was interesting. I saw this morning, and I saw actually another post. Our friends over at Southeastern 14 were talking about, you know, starting on October the 9th, we're doing this daily show or whatever. And I was like, man, basketball is really close. Basketball is actually really close, or much closer than I realized it was. So, yeah. Anyways, guys, 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377 here on this Thursday, September the 21st. Let's see. Getting back into your comments. Pivotal Limp says, we have a basketball team. Mabry and R26 is actually like basketball over baseball. Some people do. Mabry and R26, some people are not baseball people. Some people are not baseball people, and I don't blame anybody. Listen, baseball is a long season. Baseball is a very, very long season. And, I mean, I tell people all the time, like, from the content side, baseball season's a different busy than football. Because there's more games, right? Like, there's just simply more games, but it's one of those things where, you know, it's just different. It's just a different vibe, which I actually really like. I love the chill nature of baseball season where it's like one loss doesn't just completely ruin your season, right? It's like, okay, we'll get them tomorrow, you know, type of feeling. Where it's like football, like, you know, you lose a game and people just freak out. So, Madison Duncan says South Carolina 31, Mississippi State 21. I'd take that score, Madison. I got to say, I'd probably take anything that's a win. I really would. I would take anything that is a win on Saturday. I don't have a preference. I don't have there's no really ideal way of it shaking out. Like, as long as South Carolina gets the W, that's really all I care about, guys. That's really all I care about is seeing the Gamecocks get the victory. You do that, I think it was a successful Saturday. So, let's see. Brewer Nation, let Lamont cook. Indeed. Brewer Nation, our uniforms this year are tough, though. Are on fire, though. I like them, too. I like them, too. Greg Bedinger says, baseball season hasn't been long enough for 10 years now. Yeah, need an Omaha trip and need it soon, my friend. Let's jump back to the phone lines
Call
here.
from
Josh in Seattle.
Josh in Seattle. What's going on? How are you?
Hey, Chris, how you doing today, man?
Doing fantastic. Appreciate you
asking. Good to be
asking.
on with you. Just wanted to call in and talk a little first, whoever don't like baseball. It's an art. It is the best sport that was ever created. So those folks need to get some culture in their lives. But besides that, calling to talk keys to victory this weekend. And really, I think it's just go out and score a bunch of points. I mean, go out there, put more on the scoreboard than they do, obviously. But I think it's time for the Carolina offense and Dowell Loggins and some of these players we've been hearing about, seeing them come along to get out there and do what we've been hoping they would do, right? It was tough against the Georgia defense. Watching that second half and those young men flying around, see why they were all 5 stars. Those dudes were fast. But Mississippi State ain't the same thing. And so I think we got a shot to go out there and really, let's see what Spencer can do against a ho-hum SEC defense. You know, they got some guys over there, but I think they can go out there and put up some serious points if they want to.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you, man. I think it's a great opportunity for Spencer Rattler and and this offense to really click. I mean, you look at Mississippi State's weakness is your strength. That's through the air. So, I think it's a great opportunity for South Carolina, like you mentioned, man, to build off what they did in Athens and, put some points on the board and give the home faithful something to really cheer about.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. It's a 4:30 in the afternoon kick here on the West Coast. And so, I'll be into the bourbon by then and having a good time. So we're looking forward to it, and we'll catch the call-in show afterwards. Keep doing what you're doing, brother, and we appreciate you.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for the call. Really good stuff. In Seattle, how about that? Gamecock fan in Seattle. I'll say this, man, as I was listening to him, that all makes sense is what he's saying all makes sense. What he's saying all makes sense. It never is that easy, though, is it? Like, you look at the Georgia game, what Rattler and company were able to do. You look at Mississippi State, they can't stop the pass. You say, okay, Gamecocks are going to throw for 350, 400, win this thing with ease. Does it ever go exactly to plan in that manner? Like, does it ever? I mean, I want it. I want it to. You want it to. We all want it to. But with Gamecock football, it's never that simple. Like, there's got to be a catch somewhere, right? And I hope I'm wrong, but it's just like I think that is the Gamecock PTSD that I was referencing before that gives me some hesitation when it comes to this football game. We got a text to your guys. Frank says, Gamecocks need to play like the rest of the season like they did the first half of the Georgia game, and we would be in great shape. We just got outmanned and outplayed in the second half. But I just got back home. I got locked up in Athens last weekend after the game. I was so pumped up and angry. I walked out of the game kicking people with the back of my ankle, pretending to spur them. And then I got barked at and called a weenie by some Bulldogs fans, so I roundhoused one of them and got me a few nights stay at the Silver Bar Motel. What an absurd text. I hope that's a true story. I really do. I really, really hope that's a true story. No, listen, Madison says if you want to cut the show to 2:30. Now, we're going to go to 3 o'clock. We're going to go to 3 o'clock, guys. So we're going to continue to take your questions, comments, calls. We are going to jump into a quick break, but on the other side, we'll keep the conversation rolling here on this Thursday. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars. And there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose while in the office or just in your home, call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, they are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya.
Muscle Dougie Ho.
Ladies and gents, we're back here on this Thursday, September the 21st, 2023, as we continue to take your questions, your comments, your calls here in our Q&A Power Hour. In case, guys, you missed it, big changes coming to TDC starting next week. We will be live Monday through Friday, every single day as normal. We will talk Gamecocks and SEC and college football and everything in between as normal in our first hour. In our second hour, we will have our weekly guests. None of that will change. The biggest change coming, no more Q&A Power Hour. We'll be moving some content around. We'll go live noon to 2 instead of noon to 3. No more Q&A Power Hour. On Fridays, we will have a mailbag in which folks can call in, leave their questions. It'll be kind of a wide open, old school TDC hour. And that is the way we will operate moving forward. So just to let you guys know, noon to 2 starting next week instead of noon to 3. And no more Q&A Power Hour Monday through Thursday. Of course, guys, as I mentioned, we will take the only questions we will take are either super chats on YouTube or those that are in the Big Cock Club Discord. So, anyways, just to let you guys know what's going on, and that's how we are going to proceed moving forward. Let's see. Mad Dog Madison says in the Big Cock Club Discord, if we beat Mississippi State, will you wear the helmet for the call-in show just to open the show and take it off? Madison, I cannot promise. I mean, I kind of like where the helmet is in the background, so I can't promise that I'm going to do that. Let's see. Ruben Nation, I hope Paris gets this team to show out and take a step forward. 15-17 wins, 5-7 wins in conference. Yeah, Bruin Nation, I think that'd be a really good season. First year for Lamont Paris, man. or not first season, a good second season. I think that'd be a good season in the sense of like getting to the NIT, moving this program closer. I mean, we all agree, guys, last year was a nightmare. Last year was abysmal. I mean, I remember, guys, if you want a I'm not sure I should pull back the curtain quite this much, but I mean, I'll say this, that the last basketball season, there were times that like I was literally on the golf course while the Gamecocks were playing, because I was like, am I just going to sit here and devote my entire Saturday to watching this basketball game, or am I going to go out and enjoy my life and also catch the basketball game, listen to it? But I was fully taking advantage of the flexibility. But because, too, like, it's if South Carolina was ranked and playing some huge ranked matchup, it'd be a lot different. But the fact of the matter is they weren't. You know what I mean? The fact of the matter is they were not. So I hope there's a reason to actually sit down and sit in front of the TV and do some post-game call-in shows and tune in like that. But I can't say for certain that there will be. So Austin Hicks says, damn, Chris, the best part of the show is the power hour and call-ins. Some of you might think that, Austin. I think there's going to be a lot of folks that disagree with you, but some folks might think that and some may not. But, Austin, I had to make a decision at the end of the day that was best for me, best for the business, and best for the show moving forward. And that's where we are. That's where we stand, and that's it. So, anyways, we are taking right now, though, your questions, comments, calls at 843-790-3377. And, Austin, to be transparent with you, man, I could have just completely eliminated the power hour, eliminated calls, eliminated questions, all that stuff, and instead, I didn't do that. We have the mailbag segment on Friday, so I didn't have to do that. That was something that obviously I wanted to keep that in there so that you guys still have an opportunity to call and conversate and get your thoughts. But again, this was the best decision for the business. I know this is the best decision, and I feel confident in that. And I trust my gut, and we'll keep it moving forward with that. And if we need to make an adjustment, a change, Austin, I'm not completely attached to being right, or we'll receive feedback from the audience and we'll move forward. We'll press forward. So. Mad Dog in the Big Cock Club Discord. Maybe one game I'm going to try and make it a thing, stay cool in regards to putting the helmet on in the post game. I'm going to wait, Mad Dog, till we have a little bit of a bigger win than Mississippi State. How about that? Is that fair? I think so. Spur Your Enthusiasm says Mississippi State's going to get blown out of the water this weekend. Spencer Rattler is going to put on a clinic on his path to winning the Heisman. Spur Your Enthusiasm, and I mean this with all due respect, the beautiful thing about you picking a win every week and picking Spencer Rattler to throw for 500 yards is at some point, you'll probably be right. So I'm hoping this is the weekend that you are right. Anyways, guys, phone lines are open, as I mentioned. Would love to hear from you, your thoughts, your analysis, predictions. What are your predictions for Saturday? What might they be? I'm really surprised this Dowell Loggins quote is getting as much traction as it is, guys, in case you missed it. Dowell Loggins, I posted this quote without any analysis or context even. Dowell Loggins says, quote, if someone is not playing, there is something not going on, that either the player is not meeting the expectations of the coach or the player's expectation of themselves are not high enough. That is how depth chart decisions get made. And to say there's been some pushback on that quote is putting it lightly. I think that's putting it lightly. There has definitely been some pushback, and maybe some folks that are not agreeing, maybe feeling like he's talking about Mario Anderson or Nick Harbor or whatever. I mean, basically holding them accountable, saying, listen, you want to see more of Mario Anderson? Well, Mario Anderson needs to do more in practice. Mario Anderson needs to perform better in practice. And I think some folks do not agree. So, anyways, 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377 here on this Thursday. Again, appreciate each and every single one of you. And I'm going to say thank you all so much for the love and understanding, guys, as we make decisions that are best for business and move the business forward and make the show better, truly, that you guys are supportive. And, guys, if you have any questions and you don't understand something or what have you, feel free to reach out. Let's see. Boomer Nation, Gamecock Nation turning on Dabble after they already weren't going to give him a chance. I think Dabble's been, I know you only scored 31 points in the UNC and Georgia games, but I think Dabble's been not too shabby to this point. Now, we'll see what happens on Saturday, but, I don't have any complaints right now about Dabble Loggins. Let's jump back to the phone lines here.
Call from
Peyton.
Peyton, what's up, man? How are you?
Good. How about yourself, Chris? What do you say, man?
I'm doing fantastic, man. I appreciate you asking. What's going on?
So just calling in to talk a little bit more ball. I'll give you my prediction tomorrow. Let's see. Today is Thursday. Yeah,
Today is Thursday, yes.
Yeah, I'll lock it in tomorrow. But I just wanted to talk a little bit more about the game itself. So I think where we're at right now as a team is we're a little unproven. We've shown some promise, but we've also shown some real ugly football through 3 weeks. But I think last week we went into the fight and we were expecting to get our ass kicked, but we went in there. We lost the fight, yes, but we kept our lunch money, if you know what I'm saying. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
We didn't just get wiped off the field. But this week, I feel like is the week for us to kick somebody's ass and take their lunch money. I think this is the statement game that is needed to just boost everybody, just to say, hey, don't forget where we are, or don't forget who your coach is, and don't forget the trajectory that I have this program on. I think this is a good opportunity to be able to put a stamp on things, to say, hey guys, we're still Carolina. Things is not in the dump. We're working on it. Run game's getting better. I would really like to see 75 plus rushing yards. I think that's a very reasonable goal. I think if we get that, I think we can build on that going forward. I think we got to start somewhere. And have we even eclipsed? I mean, how many rushing yards did we have against Furman? Was it less than 50?
I think it was 108 rushing yards against Furman. 108.
Okay. So 108. All right. So that's against the FCS team, with the FCS linemen. So I think against our real SEC team coming in here for our home opener, I think we need to try to get 75 plus. I think that's a reasonable goal, especially if you spread the touches around and get some guys in different looks.
Yeah, I think so as well, man. I think if you can get 75 or more, 100 is that illustrious number. I think it was our guy JB over at Inside the Gamecocks that said South Carolina's 12-1 or something under Shane Beamer when they run for 100 yards or more. So it's pretty simple, man. When South Carolina is able to run the football, they have great offensive balance. And when you have great offensive balance, typically you're scoring a lot of points. And the Gamecocks have normally played good enough defense to, win games when they play well offensively. So if you can have any semblance of balance on Saturday, I think you should be able to, Spencer Rattler should continue to do his things, able to get the entire group of weapons you have. And I think you should be able to have some success offensively and have a fun night.
Well, obviously this is probably going to be the most plain Jane vanilla statement I've ever made on here, but obviously the goal is to move the ball and score points on Saturday. However, we need to also try to work and continue to get better on these other things that we're lacking on. So we know we're strong in the pass game. We're leading the SEC in passing offense through 3 weeks. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Am I talking about?
Yeah, Gamecocks are 8th in the country, 8th nationally in passing offense, number 1 in the SEC, 128th nationally in rushing offense out of 130 teams, dead last in the SEC.
Yeah, I think the season goal, man. I think if we finish 11th or better in rushing offense by the end of this year, I think that shows signs of progress. But what I was saying is obviously what we're going to try to do is establish a run game first. Now, the probability of us coming out and having early success in the run game, especially against Mississippi State's linebackers, is kind of improbable. But the probability of Spencer Rattler going off
and having one of his signature games is very high. And that's really what I'm looking for. I'm looking for 350 plus, and I'm looking for 3 touchdowns through the air from Rattler. I'm looking for a big weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be there, man. I would expect South Carolina to come out with an aggressive game plan, attack down the field, use their weapons on the outside. Again, let Rattler do his thing, man. I think if you do that, it sets up well for a big night. And, it's all about, obviously, the big uglies up front, man. Give them time. We need to continue to see the offensive line take steps forward. If they give Rattler time to operate in this football game, I feel confident he will have big-time success.
For sure. And, I talked about how it's going to be exciting to see who the next lineman that steps up is. And I think it's shaping up to be Trevon Bowe, man. He's really, really shown that he can hang with the big guys, especially what he did last week and games previous. He's got potential to be a real player, and I'm looking for him to step up and be that next guy to help round our offensive line out a little bit, make it a little more steady. So I'm looking for big things out of Bowe. Like I said, Babalade is a stud in the making. I feel like just based on a true freshman stepping into a game like that last Saturday, hostile environment, number 1 team in the country, and you come out and perform the way you did and hold it down about as well as anybody could against Georgia. That's a statement for that young guy, and I think some more young guys are going to make noise, and especially up front by season's end. But how are you looking for Harbor to be incorporated this week? Do you think he sees more snaps this week?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, he had 9 snaps against Georgia, which, JC made the point that he was actually encouraged by that because he expected him to see 0. I mean, listen,
Right.
Shane Beamer made the comment that they need to play them more and that they are going to play them more. I don't know if I'm necessarily expecting Nick Harbor's breakout game to happen. I think it's one of those things where it's kind of hard to predict, and when it happens, it happens. And I think from there it'll be kind of a snowball effect and what he's going to do for Carolina. But I didn't expect to see him until about midseason, to be honest with you. But I think this could be a game, and you have great opportunities, like I mentioned, with just their secondary and the issues they've had, and they like to play man on the outside. So I think South Carolina will have opportunities in one-on-one matchups. And I mean, I know he's just a freshman and he's just learning, but you feel like if you can get Nick Harbor in a one-on-one matchup that, you at least from the athleticism standpoint and the speed standpoint, like your chances. So I'm not going into this game banking on it. I'm not predicting it. I wouldn't be shocked if he got some action and got in there, but it's just, he's continuing to learn and come along. And I know Gamecock fans are very, very antsy to see him in there. I don't know exactly when it's going to be, but, what a fun one it'd be if he could, because, again, there should be success to be had in the passing game. And, maybe Nicholas Harbor's a part of it.
Yeah. And, if I think ideally to kind of ease the minds and the hearts of Gamecock faithful, I think he needs to see anywhere from 10 to 25 snaps a game. But the biggest thing is we want to see the ball thrown his way. We want to see how he reacts. Can he catch? We know he can jump and run extremely well, but can he land? Can he stay on his feet? Does he know about center of gravity and foot placement? All the little intricate things that go along with receiver, especially in the SEC. But I think 10 to 25 snaps is what I would like to see this Saturday. And in terms of targets, I would like to see anywhere from 3 to 5 targets. 3 to 5 targets. I think if you give him that opportunity, I think that's something that you can build on going forward. I would just like to see the ball thrown his way, man.
It sounds like it, man. 3 to 5 targets would be by far the most he's gotten this season. So, yeah, we'll see.
Hopefully, man, fingers crossed. We got a lot of talent that we have yet to take the top off of yet. And I think, he mentioned Tyshawn Russell's name. Am I pronouncing that right?
Tyshawn Russell, yeah.
Yeah. He mentioned his name right along there with Rattler. So we got to play these guys more. And Russell's a burner, man, at least from the touchdown pass that I saw from Sellers. he wasn't moving slow at all on that route.
Right.
He's a burner.
Yeah.
And I think with being a smaller, shifty guy like that, being elusive and having that speed, I think he can do some things for us as well. So I'm looking for big things out of a lot of young guys this weekend, needless to say. So.
Indeed, man. Got to use that young talent, I agree, and exhaust all efforts to get the dub this weekend.
That's right. Got to get it done. Got to kick some ass and take somebody's lunch money this weekend. Like I said, this is the statement game that we need. So I'll holler at you tomorrow. I'm kind of sad we're not going to be having these afternoon conversations anymore. Instead of calling in for my afternoon break, I'm gonna have to start calling in on my lunch break. So but ain't no thing. I'll still always call in whenever I can, but I'll call in and lock in my prediction tomorrow. You stay safe, stay cool. Thanks for his up, show. Go Cox, buddy. I appreciate it, Chris.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Peyton. Good stuff as always from Peyton. I think great points. Do we see Nicholas Harbor on Saturday night? Do we see Nicholas Harbor? So maybe we do. Maybe we do. I tend to think that, if he has a catch or two, I'd be pretty happy with that. So, let's see. Lady Bree says, I don't think we've proven DK can't, I would assume, be the running back. The snaps aren't even there, only so much of a sample size to say, that one run play by Anderson. DK is in more snaps. That means his average takes the hit. Lady Bree, but he's had a few of those runs himself, mostly through, I don't know what that is, through his rumination. Play calling ain't the problem. Players got to execute. Jacob says, Dabble is smart. He plays to the team's strengths. If we had any bit of a run game, we would have a top 25 offense. I don't disagree with that. Lady Bree says, let's see. Yeah, the calling isn't the problem. The O-line must execute to a minimal level through a whole game. I will say I saw a little too many passes behind the line of scrimmage at points. Lady Bree, I know trying to accommodate the line, but it still becomes overused at times. Mary Gennard 26, I like how Omega attacks the ball and doesn't sit there and wait for it. I like that as well. Yeah, I like that as well. Yeah, spur your enthusiasm. Josiah Thompson, now a 5-star on 3. Did see that. Did see that as well. Guys, that being said, we're going to jump into one final break on the side. We'll close out the show in style with more of your questions, your comments, your calls, and more on the other side. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars. And there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose while in the office or just in your home, Call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, they are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya.
Muscle Dougie Ho.
Ladies and gents, we are back. Final 10 minutes or so here on the Daily Crow, taking your questions, comments, calls. 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377 here on this Thursday. What are some other games you're fired up for the weekend, guys? I admittedly am excited to watch Clemson and Florida State at noon. Obviously, that Ole Miss-Alabama game is going to be a really fun one. Ohio State and Notre Dame, going to be a great contest. What are some other games not on the SEC slate that you guys are most excited to watch? Also, guys, we're taking your predictions. What are your thoughts? Who you picking? Is anybody out there not picking the Gamecocks? That's my question. Like, is anybody in Gamecock Nation not picking the Gamecocks? Anyways, let's see. Spur your enthusiasm. I just want to say in regards to Coach Logan's comments, I think people are reading into it the wrong way. And personally, I think that's him speaking out to the players to light a fire under their ass. Sort of a show me mentality. Show me how badly you want it. Yeah, maybe so. Brewer Nation says, Coach Ford blames Dabble for no blocking, dropping balls, missed routes. DK having no vision, fighter jet crashing, Trump, COVID, Zaxby's being dressed. Attaboy, Bruin Nation. So, guys, I got to say, I know you guys love to give me feedback. I'm going to give y'all some feedback. In a decision that we made to expand the show from just YouTube to Facebook and to Twitter, right? Expand the show out beyond just YouTube. It honestly has not had the impact I thought it would. I've actually seen the numbers go down, it feels like, since we made that move. And I don't know it's because if you give people too many options, they can't decide or what it is. And also, guys, I'll be totally honest with you. I don't feel as if the Facebook crowd has really I don't feel as if the Facebook crowd has really made an impact in the comments. I just there's been a few here and there. I appreciate our guy Coleman Hall chiming in. I don't know if Coleman, you refuse to get a Google account or go on a YouTube or whatever it might be, even though we always post the link to TDC every day at noon. I don't know what it is, but I don't know, man. I honestly think with TDC going back to noon to 2 next week, I think we'll also go YouTube exclusive. I really do. It's the superior platform. It's, where people are able to super chat. It's the only platform we monetize. And so I think we're going to go back to that. I have not seen the positive impact from Twitter and Facebook and expanding it that I thought we would. And so I think we're going to make the adjustment and go back to only YouTube. Let's jump back to the phone lines here.
Call from
John Edward.
John Edward, what's up, man? How are you?
Good. I just had a quick question for you, and then I have a thought. I want to get your thoughts on the job that Dowell Loggins has done thus far.
Yeah, John Edward, I think he's been solid. I mean, I think that there's still a lot of football to go, and there's still more to judge for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's, respectively, you only scored 17 against UNC and 14 against Georgia, but I don't have any complaints necessarily thus far, but we're going to learn a lot more, I think, as we go week to week, and certainly in a game like this where you feel like you should have a lot of offensive success. I think this is going to be one that goes a long way in determining how we feel about Dowell Loggins and the job he's doing.
No, I do think he's done a good job thus far, and like he's done as opposed to the last offensive coordinator, Marc Satterfield. And we see how that's going in Nebraska right now. But at least he's using – would you say – I think Dowell Loggins is actually using Spencer Rattler to his strengths. Unlike, until somebody else, let's just be frank, was calling the plays at the end of the season last year and wasn't Marcus. I feel like Dowell's done a better job using Spencer.
Yeah, I mean, I think you see that in how comfortable Spencer Rattler is. I think you see that in how comfortable Spencer Rattler is and the way that he's operating, obviously. And I mean, it's just a completely night and day different from what we saw last year. I think they're also doing a better job of getting the playmakers involved, right? We're not seeing the mind-numbing, Xavier Legette gets 10 targets one week and 0 the next. I don't think we're seeing that quite as much. So I think that's improved drastically. So, I mean, again, so far so good, I think, for Dowell. We got a long way to go in a lot of football, and you need to be able to build off what you did in Athens and carry that over to the Mississippi State game, and again, a game in which you should be able to attack the secondary and have success. And but I do like that Dowell Loggins has put the emphasis on those things at this point. But at the end of the day, this as well as I do, John Edward, you're judged off of how many points you score per game and how many games you win. And so we're not really going to have like a full determination on Dowell Loggins and the job he's done until we get later in the season.
Yeah. Before I let you go, I got three games picked. Just want to throw you away. So obviously they won 2 in the state and 1 out of state. So I got Carolina winning Saturday, got Florida State winning also Saturday. And then I just do it all week. This is even before the South Florida game Bama had last week. I totally get that it's in Tuscaloosa. I totally get that. I just think Ole Miss has more I can't think of the word, artillery or more firepower than Alabama does. And I know Alabama's going back to Jalen Milroe, but honestly, dude, I don't think it matters who Bama starts at quarterback. You can't trust anybody to play that quarterback. And I know they got O-line issues and all that stuff, but I just think Ole Miss goes in there until I see proven otherwise. I think Ole Miss goes in the Tuscaloosa Saturday afternoon and gets out of there with a win. That's just me.
Okay, so you think the Bama quote unquote dynasty is officially dead per John Edward Kruger.
Well, I haven't gone that far yet, but I'm just saying, like what you were saying earlier, if Bama loses this game, then you can probably start to have those conversations. Like, give the GOAT all the credit, what he's done, winning 6 or 7 national championships of just Alabama. I'm just like, Alabama's got way more questions than Ole Miss, despite it being at home. And at this point, just throw it over whatever Bama's got. That's just me. But anyway.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Hey, listen, I respect it. I respect being willing to go on record and pick that upset. I respect it.
I don't know. It probably would be an upset in a way of it's in Tuscaloosa. It's just I think Ole Miss is the better football team, but like I said, can you remember a time when Bama had this many questions at so many positions? Like,
I can't wait to watch. I tell you this, I can't wait to watch that one. Just to see. I think Jalen Milroe was always I think Jalen Milroe was always the quarterback. So,
gotcha. Yeah.
You know.
All right, dude. Thanks for taking my call, and you have a good rest of the week.
John Edward, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for the call. You're the man.
All right, you're the man. Bye.
Take care. Great stuff from John Edward Kruger as that takes us into the end of the show. Guys, again, thank you all so much for tuning in. The love, the support. As I mentioned, guys, the change is coming to TDC. We're going to go back to just YouTube. I think that makes more sense. I'm really, honestly, guys, trying to grow the YouTube as much as possible. I think we might even start clipping this show video-wise and start editing that and putting up video. And could take a while, but I think, for example, like tomorrow we give the prediction, we lock in the prediction. I think having a prediction video would be cool. And I don't know. I do want to grow YouTube, though. I do want to grow YouTube. So anyways, just stay tuned with that. But I think we're going to go back exclusively to YouTube for TDC because I'll be totally honest with you. I just don't think I just don't think we've really gotten what I thought we would out of expanding to Facebook and Twitter. Either way, though, guys, appreciate y'all always rolling with the punches. I know there's a lot of changes, it seems, that happen and, things that we evolve, we grow, we roll with the punches. We change our mind, we make decisions best for the business and, what have you. But you guys are always there no matter what. And I can't say thank you enough, guys. Of course, be sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube, hit that bell icon so you get notifications of when we drop new video content, when we go live as well. Also, of course, if you have not done so, hit that subscribe button on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. Really appreciate you guys tuning in. Podcast drops every single day, 5 p.m. Eastern time. If you want to go back and listen, of course, or just check the show when you're on the go, you can do so. iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcast, everywhere else. Guys, we've hit 3 o'clock. Thank you all so much. Appreciate you all tuning in. Have a great rest of your Thursday, and we will talk to you all tomorrow.